What up, everyone? Happy Thursday. Welcome to The Cult. The Cult is a show that I stream Monday through Friday around about 5 p.m. on YouTube, on Rumble, on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, and even on Kick, where we talk about really whatever I feel like talking about, whatever's going on in the world. And today, what I mostly feel like doing is our boy Nick Fuentes last night debated a leftist gay kid. And I don't really know much about this kid. No, I wouldn't know. Why are you making stuff up? I definitely don't have sex hair. Nope. 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 Never mind. I don't know anything about this little leftist kid. I don't know. I apparently he was in some Jubilee like debate about being on the left where he debated a whole bunch of people about being on the left. I really have no idea who this kid is, but I know that Nick was debating him last night, and I know it created they did. I tuned in for the briefest of moments, and in the briefest of moments I tuned into, they seem to be talking about anal sex quite a bit. So maybe I'm making some assumptions, but he kind of seems gay. He kind of seems very committed. Wait, he claimed he wasn't gay? Now listen, I don't care if he's gay or not. As you know, I love the gays. The gays love me. Like half of the men in my audience are gay. I am a fag hag of the highest order. I make no qualms about it at all. I love the gays. I just think it's funny if one of them tried to debate Nick. I want to watch it. I want to find out. I want to find out what happened. So that is what we're going to be doing. He claims that little blonde kid claims he has a girlfriend. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Hey, Milk Tea Graper. Milk Tea Graper says he did say he puts himself in gay people's shoes and on the receiving end. Okay, listen. I will be able to judge whether or not this kid is gay. We're gonna do a poll. Like again, my audience is filled with gay men, and so between me and all of the gay men in my audience, we're gonna be able to suss this one out. Yeah, this is kind of what I'm thinking. That's kind of what I'm thinking. So we are going to be spending the bulk of our time watching this debate, because I didn't watch it last night because I was doing other stuff. And so that is what we're going to spend the bulk of our time doing today. But can you guys grant me a point of personal privilege first? Can we get a James Lindsay update first? Because James's meltdown on Twitter has continued. James Lindsay just this morning continued to say that the invocation of Archangel Michael is satanic. I think that's kind of ironic because in this depiction, Archangel Michael actually seems to be fighting Satan. Like, this to me seems to be the Satan-like figure, and Archangel Michael is literally defeating Satan, and James is saying that this is a satanic invocation of Archangel Michael. I don't think that's correct. The other thing that I found very interesting about James's position, and we kind of were getting glimmers of this yesterday, but apparently, so James is now calling everyone that disagrees with him part of the woke right. And apparently, in order to not be a part of the woke right, you need to believe that classical liberalism should take over the Republican Party, and that conservatism shouldn't be a thing anymore, and it should be the classical liberals in the Republican Party versus the Democratic Party, I guess. And so I think that was emphasized today. James was tweeting, like, we're going to just go through James's Twitter account quick because he's been tweeting all goddamn day. But he retweeted this guy who said, "I'll give you a too long didn't read. When the elements on the right slide further to the right, even if it's a small minority, it helps the commies." And so James's position seems to be that unless the Republican Party moves left, the communists are going to win. James's position is that if there is an actual effective political right in this country that is actually right-leaning, that helps the communists. I don't really understand this argument. And so, I delved a little farther into it, and James also tweeted that, this whole perception is based off of a conversation he allegedly had with a secret person about the CCP. And so James said, would it change your mind about the woke right if you knew that back in like 2008, CCP bosses were saying that they could take down the American Constitution by a combination of a public health crisis and identity politics, and they co-opt their resistance through Christian nationalism? And someone asked, is there a source on that, James? And James says, no, there's no source for a private conversation that I probably shouldn't even have mentioned. And so James's source for all of this woke right bullshit seems to be pinky swear trust me, bro. You guys know how I love pinky swear trust me, bro, as a source of information. He accused Russell Brand of being a Freemason, which is weird because Rabbi Barclay is also a Mason. James accused me the other day of being a theosophist who worships Archangel Michael. And I was like, James, I maybe occasionally do an Archangel Michael meditation, and I'm a big fan of Archangel Michael because you ask Archangel Michael for protection when you're walking down a dangerous street in the middle of the night by yourself as a woman. Archangel Michael's going to cloak you, and he's going to protect you, and it's going to be cool, and you're not going to get stabbed or something. But, like, is that worshiping Archangel Michael? I don't think so. That's actually asking Archangel Michael to do his job, which is to protect you. Everyone should be able to do that. I don't think that makes me a Theosophist Gnostic, James. I don't think it makes me a Gnostic if I say that the conservative right should actually be conservative and not classical liberals. I don't think so. So before we get into the debate with Nick, James released a new video today, and it's only like 10 minutes long, and I want to watch it. Because I feel like this video is going to be like the ironclad law of James projection and James whining. And so James is now accusing everyone that disagrees with him of Darvo, which basically means James is saying that everyone who disagrees with him and is calling him out on his bullshit has a serious personality disorder. Do you guys know how James Lindsay has been accusing me of having a personality disorder for months and months and months? And I keep going, no, I don't have that disorder, bro. Yeah, it's not just me anymore. Apparently now it's everyone that disagrees with James has Darvo and is Darvoing him. And, I mean, listen, there are other people that are now starting to cover James Lindsay's meltdown, and I just feel like I deserve credit. I feel like I never get the credit I deserve because I called this a year ago. I started complaining about James and his ridiculous bullshit over a year ago. And I never get credit, and everyone always gets there after me. And now there are people that are doing whole videos on James talking about his meltdown and how he's unhinged from reality. I'm like, where the fuck were you? Where were you? I've been complaining about this for a year. I've been getting round and round and round of bullshit from conservative. Why are you infighting, Carlin? Why are you infighting? Why don't you work with James? James is awesome. You're on the same team. Why don't you stop? And it's like, you know what? Now that I've been proven right, I just want my comeuppance. I earned this. I called this. This is the problem. I am too far ahead of things. I am too far ahead of things so that when people eventually catch up to me a year later, everyone forgets that I got there first. And it's not fair. It is not fair. This has been a long time coming. Yeah, I think everyone needs to start sending me those $2, right, Carlin is right, tip jar super chats. I'm just saying, everyone owes me a $2 super chat. Yep, I need a certificate. Where's my certificate? I need a certificate, okay? I need a certificate. Yep, he is spiraling. He is indeed. Let me see, I'm trying to get Fender Beans chat up here. It seemed like a grift at first, but now it seems like James actually believes what he's saying. Yes, he does. James needs to log off. He needs to log off. And he's been going all day. Like, look, and by the way, when you go and look at James's Twitter, always look in the replies. Him and Michael, look, fun fact, there's a statue of Archangel Michael slaying a dragon. Who cares? This is proof that it's a theosophic, Gnostic cult, James. He just keeps going. I lost almost 5,000 followers and several friends over this. James is now using AI to try to prove himself correct. He's calling Tim Pool the woke right. I'm not upset about that. These are the people who did a video about him today, I think. It's just like Michael O'Fallon is losing his mind. I really want to encourage everyone. We're not going to go through James's whole Twitter today, but I've been monitoring it. If you have some time, go through James's Twitter account. It's hilarious. It really is. Yeah, it really is. W me. I win. Now, so we are going to watch that debate with Nick Fuentes, guys. So if you're here for that, do stick around. But I feel like this impacts the Groypers too, because I feel like Nick Fuentes actually caused all of this. I don't actually think it was me and my community. We're too small. We are small potatoes. We are small. We are a small little tiny fly under the radar kind of like, cult, literal cult, like community. But Nick Fuentes and the Groypers have been on James's ass for a while, and I really do feel like Nick Fuentes and the Groypers are owed credit for this, because I really think that Nick Fuentes tweaked James so badly that this is the outcome of Nick Fuentes and the Groypers. And so we need to hear what James is saying. This is going to be a quick little video. I just want to make sure I watch it, and then we're going to go into the debate with Nick. And so let's listen to James complain about everyone else except for him and take no responsibility for the mess in which he's caused himself. Oh shit. Hang on. You can't hear that. I didn't set the sound up correctly. You can't hear it. Let me fix that. All right, again.
Hey everyone, it's James Lindsay, and you're listening to New Discourse's Bullets, where I give a short bullet point-like summary of one topic relevant to woke Marxism that we need to understand so we can defeat it. And I talked in a previous episode of the Bullets about a concept that comes from the abuse literature, psychological abuse or narcissistic abuse specifically, that's called DARVO, D-A-R-V-O, which is a acronym. It's not a word in and of it.
By the way, everything James says in this podcast about other people, I promise you, he will have accused me of doing at some point.
Itself. DARVO, and you'll see me put this on Twitter all the time. DARVO stands for deny, attack, and reverse the roles of victim and offender. So those are your D-A-R.
I don't know why. You guys keep saying I have sex hair. I don't know what you're talking about. You guys are making shit up. It's the second person to say I don't know what you're talking about. I deny everything.
V-O. Deny is D. Attack is A. Reverse the roles of is R. Victim is V. And offender is O. This is a tactic that is used by narcissistic and psychopathic abusers to, when they're called out, to flip the table. It's to turn the tables back on the person calling them out.
Everyone else is a
narcissist. And it's extremely common in abusive relationships. It's extremely common in abusive relationships with your government or with your media. And so I call this out a lot. And this isn't an episode, since I already did one talking about DARVO specifically. I want to talk about a specific kind of DARVO that appears within woke infiltration. And I'm going to be a little broader than I often am, and I'm going to be very blunt here, that this happens both on the left and on the so-called right, the fake right, the woke right, if you want, the right hand of the left. We don't have a great name for this phenomenon of...
Remember, James thinks that you are on the woke right if you are not a classical liberal. Dr. K had no. Why are you guys spreading misinformation about me? I've been working all day. Jesus Christ. I'm so glad everyone is so interested in my hair today.
Far right, cringe right, alt right. What right do we want to call it? But not the real right, the faux right, the fake right. I don't know which right to call it, but it's not the right. It's because it acts like the left. But calling it the right hand of the left has infuriated them in the past, and calling them the woke right has infuriated them in the present. So I like both of those terms. But they are people advancing conservative values, and we'll talk more about them in an episode soon, using conservative values
Oh, good. A
that
whole
are
other
being,
episode. I
or
can't
not
wait.
apparently
We're
conservative
going to
values,
cover
being
that too.
advanced through leftist methodologies, dialectical methodologies, the same kinds of word games and traps, the same kinds of setups, the same kinds of manipulative behavior, the same kinds of lying, the same kinds of blending truth and lie. That's another topic for another podcast. But I just want you to have on your radar that there is a left that is woke, and there is a right hand of the left that is woke, or a woke right that we can refer to.
All right, let me just ask people in the chat. One in the chat, if you believe that everyone who is not a classical liberal is part of the woke right. Two in the chat, if you believe that classical liberalism has no place on the right at all because it will be completely ineffective at actually accomplishing anything. So one in the chat if you agree with James, and everyone who is not a classical liberal is on the woke right. Two in the chat if you think that classical liberalism taking over the conservative movement is a really bad idea. Like, okay, I just like, my chat is literally filled with twos. There's not a single one in it. James is wrong.
And in fact, I bring up and spend some time on them here talking about this particular brand of Darvo, which I haven't even told you what it is yet. It is the
It's a
You're
secret hidden
Divisive
knowledge.
Darvo, because it's extremely common at the beginning of a campaign. We are now in a very deep rut with woke. Woke, in fact, is not new. Woke is getting old for all intents and purposes, although it's older than that. Woke has been a major player in our culture for 9 years at the least. Late 2014 to early 2015 is when it broke out, at least under Black Lives Matter, into our culture in the mainstream. Not just a bunch of snowflakes, as they said on college campuses, but actual activism in our cities using woke ideology to drive it. So we're talking, 8, 9, 10 years of people being subjected to woke.
Longer than that. And if James actually knew anything about what was happening on the ground, he would know that. Thank you, LK. James Lindsay is like a Californian who leaves because they voted for bullshit, moves to Texas, and is mad it's a red state. I think that that's a really apt observation. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Thank you, LK, for the super chat.
It is not at the beginning of its campaign any longer. So while it does use the particular Darvo that I'm going to describe here, which I don't have a great name for, so I'm going to call it the You're Divisive Darvo. It's more common to see that at the beginning of a campaign or of a radical splinter movement than it is to see it in a fully matured one. And so we don't see it as often from the left, although we do sometimes. I also have noticed that it crops up particularly more often in churches than it tends to crop up in other spaces. And I think that there are reasons for that.
James is accusing all Christians of being on the woke right. This is going to go great for him.
That have to do with the fact that the church is kind of supposed to be a unified community. But you will also see this You're Divisive Darvo technique cropping up in workplaces or anything where there's supposed to be some kind of cohesion amongst a group of people, because what it's using is the concept of divisiveness. It is in fact being divisive and then calling out people who point out the divisive tactics and say no, and accusing them of being divisive in return. So that's how this Darvo works. I'm going to make the case, I think, after I explain it a little bit more, which I don't think it's that complicated to explain, that this is actually the Mao Zedong unity formula put into practice. And I just want to point out to you that
if you are criticizing James Lindsay, you are literally using the methods of the CCP against him. Holy shit.
Did a podcast on that as well. And so you can go listen to the whole unity criticism, unity idea, a bullet podcast on that. Or you can listen to the long podcast I did where I read through Mao Zedong's entire speech where he introduced the importance of that concept in 1957. Just to kind of tell you that stuff's out there. There's other resources. So the way this You're Divisive Darvo works, remember, deny, attack, reverse the roles of victim of offender and offender, is the way this works is that some radical group infiltrates or comes along as fellow travelers, and they introduce a radical policy not everybody's going to agree with. That already is divisive. It's immediately divisive when it gets put on the table. It could be an accusation of racism, for example, in the workplace would be a great example. Accusation of racism in the country did this, split the country in half when George Floyd died. You can picture that in your diversity trainings you've had at work. These accusations are leveled, and you get the kind of fracturing of the workplace environment. Same thing would happen in churches. Somebody puts forth a policy that is radical and transformational, so it's dialectical and left.
Hey, thanks, Master Genocide, for the super chat. Does him saying all Christians are on the woke right mean that James Lindsay Christian conversion betting is... Yeah, so this actually screwed things up. We were positive James was going to convert to be a Christian before the end of the year. A lot of people were pegging it around Christmas. We had a whole betting pool going. I think that, maybe, who knows? Maybe James will still do it. Maybe James will realize that telling everyone that if you believe in Archangel Michael, you are part of a Gnostic sex cult, maybe he'll realize that that was like actually a really bad idea, and he'll have to do his religious conversion as a way to atone for his sins against the conservative Christians who've been paying his bills for years and years and years. Because based on the tweets that James has been sending, it kind of seems as though he's losing some people on his team. And so he might have to undergo a ritual humiliation in order to get them back at some point. So maybe he'll come back to the faith. I don't know. But let's just keep the betting pool going.
Left in its orientation, it's got a divisive quality to it itself, and so long as you go along with it, everything's fine. But the second you say, hey, wait a minute, what's going on, they turn around and point at you and say, you're being divisive. You are causing division because
James.
Now you're the one preventing the unity, where there was previously unity and going along with their radical idea that people hadn't realized maybe was a bad one. And now somebody has spoken up. So the person who spoke up is the divider rather than the person who put forth the intolerant policy in the first place. And then, like I said, this is exactly the Mao Zedong unity, criticism, unity formula put into practice. Mao would put forth some kind of a policy, and he would say, we're going to have unity moving in the direction of this policy. And then if anybody disagreed or dragged their feet or called it out, those people were being divisive to that new unity that he was calling for. And so they were subjected to criticism and struggle in order to correct their values.
God forbid James undergo any criticism of his work at all. God forbid. I still think James is converting, but to a Protestant denomination. Yeah, that's actually very true. His beef is with Catholics. His beef is with Catholics, plus the MILFs and the backers lean Protestant and Jewish. Maybe a nice evangelical conversion could also work. James does seem to like those. But yeah, I think probably Protestant is what would happen. Thanks, Rottweiler.
And then there could be, in his words, after you solve this contradiction or resolve this contradiction between the people, he said you could then have a new unity on a new basis. And in other words, you have an organization, let's call it that, that's moving in a particular direction. And we'll call that unity on the old basis. So they're all headed towards something. And then some new policy comes along that wants to take it some, let's say 5 degrees or 10 degrees off course to go somewhere different, right? And that's going to be a new unity on a new basis when everybody goes along following that new course. And if you say, wait a minute, we should stay the course, we should stick to what we were doing in the first place, this is a radical change and a bad idea, they'll say that you are the one who's now causing the split. Because before that, everybody was veering along with the new unity policy. And then you said, no, let's stick with the old policy. And so you caused people to wake up and therefore split a sleepwalking organization that was going off the wrong direction. So you become the divisive one, calling people out for introducing radical and intolerant policies in line with Mao Zedong's unity, criticism, unity program will result in you being criticized for being divisive. That will be the specific.
Just as a reminder, we will be getting to the Nick Fuentes debate right after this. I just wanted to do a James catch up. This is a short video. Everyone can, we need to know what kind of insanity from James Lindsay is going to be coming next. And it's also funny.
Nature of the criticism. So you become the divider. So that's going to try to get the mass of the people, even the people who agree with you, to turn on you for their natural desire not to have conflict in the organization or in the group. And so you got to remember, Marxism and the dialectic operate through generating productive conflict. It is a conflict theory of the movement of history. So somebody comes.
Yeah, this is actually unironically what James is saying. He is saying if you disagree with me, you are literally Hitler or you're literally a Nazi. Unironically, that's what he believes.
Along and introduces the policy that will induce conflict, and then they say that the conflict hasn't occurred until somebody says no, at which point you now have these two poles that are fighting over what direction to go, and that person gets labeled divisive so that people will go along with the new program and or the organization will break in half or split. And so, as Marx put it in the Communist Manifesto, there will either be a radical reconstitution of the society at large, or there will be the common ruin of the contending classes. That's how he phrased it. And this is that formula. So what this looks like in practice is it's a Darvo. They put forth a divisive policy, and you call it out, and that's the moment the Darvo begins. Narcissists don't hit you with Darvo. Radicals don't hit you with Darvo. Gaslighters don't hit you with Darvo until they get called out. So they put forth a radical policy, and here's what you need to understand. The division occurred there.
So what James is saying is Nick Fuentes and the Groypers are too effective in their messaging, and now people are starting to have this crazy idea that maybe the conservative right should actually be more conservative because Nick Fuentes and the Groypers are pulling everyone to the right. And James is being the noble hero in calling that shit out and saying anyone that might agree with Nick Fuentes and the Groypers or even deviate in any small part from the narrative that I believe is true about World War II, they are all now the woke right, and they're extremists, and they're going to cause the left to win because apparently if you go right on the actual political right, that will cause the left to win. And James is being the noble hero to say that we need to make the right classically liberal and we need to make the Republican Party classically liberal. And then when the Catholics and the conservatives are like, James, we don't want the Republican Party to be classically liberal, James is like, you're worshiping a Gnostic cult if you invoke Archangel Michael. And then they're like, what the fuck, James? And then James says, I am the victim of Darvo because he pissed off all of the Catholics on the conservative right by saying that Archangel Michael was literally Satan. That's not, everything I just said is true. Like, that actually happened. That is actually James's position. If it sounds crazy to you, it should sound crazy because James has lost his goddamn mind. But that is the real argument that he is making.
The second that happened,
exactly.
Even if people were mystified or confused or going along and it sounded like a good idea, the division happened there. And that's very important. So they put forth a divisive policy. Sometime later, you say no, and they deny it wasn't divisive, and they attack, you're divisive. And they reverse the roles of victim and offender. The organization is under attack, so it's the victim, but now it gets turned into the offender. And I've heard story after story after story from owners of small businesses who are terrified of their own employees because they think that their employees are going to do a woke Darvo on them of this kind. If they say, no, let's stay on mission, let's try to do what we actually envision for the company. This is the owner speaking. They're afraid of a woke backlash. This is, I've seen extremely common in Christian circles. In Christian circles, what I see is that somebody comes along and proposes a policy that is a radical departure from what should be going on or what has been going on, whether it's woke or whether it's woke right, whatever we want to call it. And then somebody calls it out and they say, you're calling out Christian brothers. You shouldn't be doing that. You're divisive.
No, you.
That's extraordinarily common. I, of course, am severely disempowered in this regard since I'm not, to anyone's knowledge at least, I'm not a Christian, and I portray myself as not a Christian at the very least. I say it this weird way, by the way, because I've decided nobody needs to know what my religion is any longer, and I'll never tell anybody again.
He's an atheist.
But it's perceived and likely true that I'm not a believer at any rate. Atheist. And therefore, when I get this accusation, it goes further, and if I work with a church and I say, here are things that are happening, and you got to be careful not to go along with woke right or woke left policies and you got to stay the narrow path, talking with churches, they'll say that the church has invited in an atheist, specifically with the agenda of dividing the church, and he's the divider, and the people who did that are actually divisive. And so I'm very disempowered, but I've noticed that it doesn't really matter if I was a Christian or not, because when Christians do this, they get the exact same damn treatment anyway. Christians don't care, because this isn't about being a Christian or not a Christian. It's not about calling out a brother or brotherhood or in Christ or any other thing. It's about creating a power play to advance a radical policy agenda or a radical activist agenda. And so, like I said, this is you're divisive form of Darvo. That's what it does, is it calls you out as divisive when you call out a radical departure from the mission or goals or purpose of an organization, specifically to discredit you and to add to the credit of the people accusing you of divisiveness, who usually are the people who've put forth the specific divisive policy in the first place. How are you supposed to deal with this? Like all of these things, this is just a toilet, honestly. You're going to swirl around and go down the drain eventually. It's a toilet when you get into Darvo situations. You're dealing with abusive, narcissistic, and psychopathic behavior. It doesn't get better, but the only thing you can do is expose it to as many people.
So again, remember, the argument here, and again, even my dog's upset about this, the argument James is making is that if you are offended that he said that Archangel Michael is Satan, if you are offended that you were told you're an agnostic sex cult, if you are celebrating St. Michael's Day as a Catholic, if you are offended that James is saying that the entire Republican Party has to be classically liberal instead of conservative, if you're offended in any of this, you are an abusive narcissist, and that you are Darvoing James, because all he's doing is pointing out all the errors of your ways
as possible by pointing it out. And in this case, that's why I made such a fuss a few minutes ago about saying the division began when the divisive policy itself was introduced. And so, or when the splinter group was added in as fellow travelers and started trying to radicalize the group off in a new direction. The division already occurred. The second, in language that I've given about DEI classes in the past, the second you start to make the accommodation for a new ideology, the demand to have a new ideology was already divisive, and to make room for the ideology was already divisive. And the second you grant accommodations to that, the division has already occurred. So that when somebody speaks up and says, no, we're not going to accommodate this or tolerate this intolerable new direction, they can turn around and accuse that person of being the divisive one and try to get them pushed out. You can see how what that does in practice is stops them from being criticized. With the woke right, they've got this goofy policy called netter, no enemies to the right, so that anybody who calls out somebody on the right in the present circumstances will be accused of dividing the right. But it's the radicalism itself, the intolerant radicalism, that's causing the problem. Of course, intolerant radicalism always needs to be called out. And the policy of you can't call us out or else you're dividing us, and it doesn't matter what, that could be the right, that could be a workplace, that could be a church, it could be woke right or woke left policy doing it. The fact of the matter is that when you have a policy like that we're all going to go in a particular direction, and you can't criticize people generally pointing in the right direction, or else you're divisive. You're dealing with you're divisive Darvo. And so, like I said, the only thing you can do about this is try to call it out and point it out and explain how it works to people so that it's not as mystifying. And then it's up to them. They're going to have to decide. And they should be able to decide, honestly, which path they want to follow. Do they want to go with the radicals on their splinter, or do they want to stay the true course? But they should be able to make that choice. The true course
means classical liberalism.
Actually informed as to what's going on. I mean, some people want to go be radicals. I don't think that's a great idea, but that's their right, and more power to them. But I think that they should be able to make that choice clear-eyed, that there actually has been a split, and that the division was caused by the introduction of the radical policy. It was not caused by the person who called it out. And so be aware of this form of Darvo.
James, the radical policy is saying that the Republican Party needs to be classically liberal. That is actually the radical policy. Saying the Republican Party should be conservative is not the radical policy.
Call it out as an abusive tactic, as an illegitimate tactic, and be prepared to explain how it happens, where it happens, and what the actual divisive
For
point
real.
was, and why it's necessary for people who want to be clear eyed and choosing to stay the course, or even people who want to be clear eyed and joining a radical splinter group, that they know that the division happened with the introduction of the radical policies. You don't want to sleepwalk your way, which is how the communists or Marxists or dialectical operators in general, that they want you to sleep. That's how they want you to be. They want you to sleepwalk into some new transformed position. And so you have to be able to identify it and help other people identify it. And all that there is to do for that is to understand it, recognize it, and call it out and explain it for people so that they can make their decisions in a clear-eyed fashion. I think you will find that once that dynamic begins, if you've already allowed in radical splinter elements, that you're going to lose some portion of
All
your
right,
organization.
that's enough. That's enough. All right, so James is still reeing about how he is the poor, abused victim of the internet because he said that Archangel Michael was Satan and that everyone who invokes Archangel Michael is worshiping a Gnostic cult and all this stuff. And it's just like, yeah, exactly, exactly. So that is our James update. We're gonna keep an eye. We're gonna continue to keep an eye on the situation with James because I mean the meltdown is just incredible, and I'm living for it, man. And I feel like I've earned this moment. I feel like I've earned this moment. All right, guys, we are going to be getting into the debate with Nick Fuentes and the gay, not gay leftist who claims he's not gay, but he looks kind of gay. We're going to be getting into that in a second, and I am anxious to see what happened last night. But before we get into that, just a couple quick orders of business. Number one, if you want to support the work I'm doing, head over to my Substack. That is Carlin, KARLYN.substack.com. This is where you're going to find the best breakdowns that I do of the far left and their ideology. And, right up on the Substack, I'm actually very excited. I usually don't show my merch on my own Substack, but I do have a very exciting new thing in the Unwoke art store that I just had the ability to make as of like last night. We've got yard signs, people. We have our own yard signs now. And I'm really excited about this. I just launched this product kind of last night / this morning. And so it is election season, but honestly, you can have these signs in your yard all year round. These signs only take a couple days to print. They have a pretty quick turnaround time. They'll be right out in the mail to you. You could have them for Halloween, for people coming to trick or treat at your house. You could have them for election season. You could keep it on your lawn all the time. You can order extra and give it out for friends. I've actually had a bunch of people asking me if they can get bulk discounts, and I am looking into that. This is a relatively new product in my store, so it's it's not even available to everyone to utilize yet. So I will look into that if you guys are interested in ordering a whole bunch of them, or maybe we can just like work out a deal offline and stuff like that. But that is available right now if you just go to the homepage, which is unwokeart.com. It's right up at the top. I've also got it in the menu there, so you can pick up your yard sign and that'll get shipped right out to you, and I think it'll be great. And when you get your yard sign, take a picture of it. Take a picture of it and send it to me, and that would be awesome. Also, currently in the Unwoke Art Store, we have our limited edition Halloween collection, which are Halloween shirts, basically telling people how terrifying Marxism is. We've got Marxism is coming for your soul. We've got the collectivism shirt. We've got the everyone is equal until they're not Marx horror movie poster shirt. And we've got the Marxist Utopia of the Dead. All of these designs are available in the store. They all have, there are different colors for the t-shirts. They're on sweatshirts. You can get pint glasses. You can get mugs. You can even get a limited edition sticker pack if you want a sticker pack of all of the different designs. And all of these designs in the Halloween collection are available 25% off until if you get your order in before Monday, essentially. There are different colors for the t-shirts, there are different colors for the sweatshirts. You can go online. If you have a request for a different color or a different product or something, let me know and I'll see what I can do. But all of the purchases in the Unwoke Art Store do go to fund the work I'm doing, and I really appreciate it. You get some cool swag, and honestly, like I want all of them, honestly, but I really want this red collectivism t-shirt. Like that's the one I'm really looking forward to getting, and I think it looks cool. I had a blast making those designs, and so you can pick those up in the Unwoke Art Store. Also, lastly, if you want to follow along as I'm writing my next book, which is going to be called Re-Education, the ultimate anti-communist guide for decoding the left. You know, we now know that James Lindsay has retired from actually teaching people about the left because all he wants to do is complain about the right all day, every day. So I'm working on a new book on this topic specifically. I did post a new chapter in the book last night, Democrats, Progressives, Socialists, Marxists, which is it and why does it matter? You can actually read the book as I'm writing it. You're reading draft chapters that will be formulated into a book, hopefully before the end of the year. Cross your fingers on that. I'm really working hard. And if you sign up for a membership on the Speak Socialist Substack, which is completely different from my other Substack, this is a standalone thing. You will be the very first to get a digital copy of the book when it is done. So I'm working really hard on getting this out, so you can follow along with my progress on speaksocialist.substack.com. And if you want to read the drafts as they're written, sign up for $10 a month. $100 a year. You guys are the ones that are funding my ability to write this content for you that no one else is doing, because James is now complaining about Catholics all the time on the internet. So I'll do it. Fine. I'll do it. With that out of the way, guys, let's get into the main event today. This is going to be a feel-good stream. I can feel it in my bones. This is going to be a feel-good stream. Hey, Nick Incognito, you just bought a yard sign? Awesome. Oh, I do see that order coming in. Yep. Thank you guys for everyone who's ordered yard signs so far. I'm really actually very excited about the yard signs, so I appreciate it. All right, this is our feel-good stream for the day. We are going to watch Nick, and Nick has selected a very unfortunate tie. I don't want to talk about the tie situation. He's worn this tie before. I don't like this tie. I think that his mom needs to go and take that tie out of his closet, and she needs to hide it somewhere. This is for the greater good. This is like one of those ties that it came from a discount store or something. I don't know what's going on, but I don't approve of the tie. But we're gonna get over that, and we're gonna listen to the debate. No, listen. I take my job as of giving Nick Fuentes sage advice when it comes to his ties. I take it very seriously. Nick has really upped his tie game ever since he got his new studio. The vast majority of his ties are good, but occasionally Nick does still put on an unfortunate tie. And when he does that, we need to shame him, because we need to teach him. He's still young. He's 26, and he needs to be better. And, you know, maybe we should all be buying him a tie for Christmas. Maybe we should do that. But that's okay. That's okay. We're going to get over it. All right, let's listen to this debate and let's see what happened.
Too hard?
All right.
All right.
Nick, he gave it a little introduction. I would like you to give a little introduction and tell us, the new viewers and stuff, who you are, what you do, talk a little about yourself, and go
Maybe
ahead.
I shouldn't in a tie.
Sure. Yeah. Well, my name is Nicholas J. Fuentes. I'm a live streamer. I've been doing a show called America First for 8 years, almost 8 years now. I'm 26, from Chicago. I'm a reactionary Trump supporter. Well, I was a Trump supporter, not so much anymore, but I'll be defending Trump. That's fine from,
By
debate
the way,
point of view.
What the fuck is with Melania coming out as being pro-abortion? Did everyone see this? I was like, Melania, could you not have waited, I don't know, until after the election? The election is like a month away. Could Melania Trump have not waited until after the election to come out as pro-abortion? I swear to God. These people are so stupid.
And yeah, so that's me. So I'm excited to be here. It's going to be good.
Sweet. Okay. Well, the first topic, as everyone knows, I told the chat as well, is who is the better presidential candidate. Dean, we'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, obviously, I think that the better presidential candidate is Kamala Harris. But I just wanted to clarify with Nick. You said that you're not much of a Trump supporter. So, are you voting for Trump?
No, I'm not. I'm not going to vote for him.
Who are you voting for?
No one.
I'm not voting.
Oh, okay. Holy shit. Well, I mean, the reason I chose that topic was because, I thought that you were voting for Trump. I don't really see much use in it if you're not voting for Trump. I mean,
well,
one could
it's
say
worthwhile
you should...
because I'll argue that people should. I'll just argue that Trump is better than. I think that Trump would be a better president, but I'm not going to vote for him.
Okay, yeah, sure.
So
I
we
guess
could
we'll
argue
start there.
that.
Yeah, I guess we'll start there. I disagree.
Okay.
And one of the main reasons why I disagree, we could come out of the gate swinging, is this economic policy. I think that it's pretty clear, and we could probably both agree on this, that the average American should be doing better than they are today, and they should not be doing worse than they are today. Donald Trump's proposed economic policy will make the average American worse off with his tariffs. And then his TCJA for another 10 years disproportionately benefits rich people. It will also just add reckless spending to our debt. It will inflate it even more than it is today. I think there's an estimate for
I have an absolute aversion of listening to 20-year-old live streamers pretend to be experts in economics.
the CBO putting it right at $5.8 trillion. He has no fucking plan how he's going to pay for it. Then we look over at Kamala Harris. Okay, her proposed tax policy so far is $2.4 trillion. She knows exactly how she's going to pay for it. And they're designed for 100 million American workers in the low and the middle class. And it's going to make them better off. Donald Trump's going to make them worse off. Argument's clear.
Okay, that's it. It's just the economic proposals. That's all you got?
We could start there.
Okay.
Sure, we could reference other things too. I didn't want to just throw everything at you at once. We could talk about multiple things.
Yeah, well, let me address all that. I mean, so with regard to the tariffs, J.D. Vance pointed this out. The Biden administration continued many of the Trump era tariffs. So that's kind of a moot point. I mean, I don't know if Kamala's going to. Oh, of course he did. Of course he continued.
No, they continued the tariffs, but it's not a moot point. I disagree with the Biden-Harris administration because they continued the tariffs on China. But what Donald Trump is proposing today is a 10 to 20% flat tariff on all goods imported into the country. Right? I could say that any and all tariffs are bad, right? But a 10 to 20% flat tariff on all goods is worse than tariffs on goods imported from China.
I don't think it's a flat tariff. Is that actually the policy? I don't believe that's right.
It is, right? I think that J.D. Vance was talking about this last night in the debate. I think you could reference his own policy. He's talked about it multiple times in the past. If you don't think this is,
it's only on certain countries. It wouldn't be. There would be no 15. That doesn't make any sense. There'd be no 15 to 20% tariff. But even if that were the case, fine. Let's say for the sake of argument that's true, because I don't know the Trump policy. They keep saying that Trump is going to put in place, they're calling it a consumption tax. A consumption tax is value-added tax. They're saying it's going to be like a sales tax. And that's the idea that the taxation occurs at the point of a sale of goods. And that's actually a real proposal, but that's different than a tariff because, and here's the difference, when you put a tariff on goods and services, to call that a consumption tax is to imply that the consumer will bear the full cost of the tariff. And that's not necessarily true. Trump had a lot of tariffs in his first term, and the price of goods did not significantly increase in spite of the tariffs. Everybody says that it would only be the case if the full cost of the tariff was passed down to the consumer, but that flies in the face of the fact that foreign corporations will bear the cost of the tariff, or almost all of it. And certainly not all of it is passed down to the consumer. So that's just not true. That's one. Two, with regard to deficit spending, tax policy, I mean, I know you're a young guy and everything, but like Republicans and Democrats, there's a bipartisan consensus on spending. Let's just talk about spending. Most of the spending on an annual basis is not even discretionary. Okay, there's mandatory spending and there's discretionary spending. Mandatory spending means you can't change it. Okay, the executive doesn't change it, Congress can barely change it, and that is liabilities like Social Security, Medicare. It's baked into the cake. It's a vast majority of it. And who is going to cut entitlements? Nobody. Republicans aren't proposing to cut entitlements, although they'd be more willing to than Democrats. Democrats are certainly not touching entitlements. Biden always attacks Republicans in his State of the Union, saying they're trying to touch Social Security. What do you think's driving the deficit of the debt? It's Social Security and Medicare. It's unfunded liabilities. In terms of military spending has gone up every year under the Biden administration. It's like $850 billion per year. That's the largest item in the discretionary budget. So mandatory spending is going to go up in perpetuity under Democrats and Republicans. Discretionary spending is going to go up because military is by far and away the biggest component of that, and Biden spends more. And he spends more on military appropriations because of all the foreign aid. We gave $175 billion to Ukraine. We gave $27 billion to Israel, another $8 billion to Israel last week, $7 billion to Taiwan, $1.3 billion to Egypt. That's in addition to the $850 billion per year, which that's like the highest ever under Biden.
I just want to point out that Nick is doing all of this off the top of his head and he doesn't have to Google anything. And that's impressive.
So, spending's not coming down under anybody.
Okay, well, that's just wrong. I'm sorry for interrupting you. You could
What's
reference
wrong?
your claim that spending didn't go down under Biden and Harris compared to Trump. You could reference a committee for a responsible federal budget. You said that spending wasn't going down under anyone, right? We can make a comparative analysis between the two last terms, and we could show how it's gone down. A committee for a responsible federal budget indicated that Donald Trump signed $8.7 trillion of debt into law. Meanwhile, Biden and Harris only signed in 4.6.
That's because he had COVID.
I mean, we could break that down into COVID and non-COVID. Like, for instance, Trump signed $4.8 trillion of non-COVID related expenditures into law. Meanwhile, Biden only signed in $2.2 trillion. But the first point that you made, I wanted to touch on that. You were talking about the tariffs. Right, you just kind of related it back to how like the Kamala Harris campaign is calling it, like a sales tax, and then that's kind of all you said. Yeah, I don't really care what they're calling it. I agree. That's just a term that they use to convince the average American that doesn't know much about what a tariff is, that it's really bad. But at the end of the day, the impact of the tariff, right, still does serve as a detriment to the consumer. And you were very careful with your words here, because you told me that tax, right, that tariff, isn't fully paid by the consumer, implicitly kind of conceding there that some of it is, right? And that's what I'm talking about.
Was this kid like a child actor or something? Does this kid have like a stage mom off camera? What is this? I don't know anything about this kid.
That is a tax that in some sorts is passed off to the consumer. We could also consider other attributes, such as the idea when we reduce the overall supply of a good with a constant demand, the price will go up. That's basic macroeconomics. That's going to happen when we reduce the imported the amount of imported goods without increasing the amount of like supply manufactured here at home in the U.S. At the end of the day, tariffs are bad. This is a unilateral, agreed upon consensus. Republicans and Democrats alike. You go to any economist, they'll tell you this, unless they don't have the necessary qualifications to be, and that's a fact. And then when we kind of consider these tariffs alongside his policy disproportionately benefiting the rich man and seemingly at the expense of the poor man with these tariffs, it becomes quite clear. If we want to serve to the average American in their best interests, we need to be voting for Kamala Harris because her policy does exactly that. I mean, 83% of the tax cuts in the TCJA. Not at all. 83% of the tax cuts in the TCJA for the last 7 years went to the top 1%.
I mean,
is that just rhetoric?
Okay, so my turn.
Go for it, sir.
Okay, so with regard to tariffs, yes, some of the cost is passed down to the consumer, but it's marginal. And the point of tariffs is to reshore manufacturing. I'll give you a perfect example. China has now become the largest manufacturer of electric cars. Huge industry. You could buy an electric car in China for $10,000. Tesla does not cost $10,000. If we allow China to dump their electric cars in America, there goes Tesla. There goes our American electric car manufacturing. It's a national security problem. There's a lot of problems. You have to put tariffs on the cars. Probably China will send them here regardless because they're still so cheap. And yeah, they're not going to be $10,000, but there's a value in making cars in America. There's a value, and by the way, because then Americans get those jobs. So, you could say that free trade creates the lowest costs, but the only reason it creates the lowest costs is because they can undercut us with wages and with their lower standard of living and monetary policy that they have in their own country. So tariffs are essential for a holistic understanding of the economy. The increase in prices is marginal. It's not significant. And when you call it a consumer tax or a sales tax, that does matter because they're conflating that with a VAT tax. That's very different. The 15, 20% and I don't know that they're doing it on every country, so I'll take your word for it. It's not going to be passed down to consumers beyond a marginal amount. That's one. In terms of, you said, Trump had more deficit spending. Almost all of that is accounted for by the pandemic. Almost all of it. When you say, Trump had a $8 trillion deficit, that was because of the COVID stimulus, the PPP, the cash payments.
Half of it.
Almost all of it. And here's the point.
No, go to CRBF.org.
Hang on.
Look at it
Hang on. I'll let you finish.
Yes,
you
sir.
said, so the structural problems with deficit spending, they're there under Trump. They're there under Harris. And by the way, Republicans tried to get limitations on the deficit. That's what they got elected on. Republicans regained control of Congress in 22, saying they'd limit the deficit. They negotiated it over the debt ceiling negotiations last year. They negotiated it over military appropriations last year with the October 1st deadline. Tried to negotiate it this year. Democrats wouldn't come to the table on deficit reduction. either way, like the deficit is baked into the cake, okay? The debt is $30 trillion. Interest rates are high. Interest to service the debt is going up. Neither Harris or Trump is meaningfully going to reduce the debt or the deficit. So it's just moot. Without bringing down Social Security and Medicare, just forget about it. Without bringing down the military, it's not going to happen. You know, and there are these extraordinary measures like COVID and Ukraine war. It's really neither here nor there. Also, I mean, I think deficit is really besides the point. If you want to get further into the deficit,
time I've heard
though,
a Republican say that.
He's not a
well,
Republican.
I'm not a normal Republican. I'm not like a fiscal
He's not a
conservative.
Republican.
Okay, look.
Do you mind if I respond to the points that you made so far?
What's that?
Do you mind if I respond to the points that you've made so far?
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
don't want to lose track of what you said.
Sure.
So, like, first of all, you said that.
Wait, real quick, Dean, I'm not cutting you off. Guys, we just have 10 minutes on this topic. Just 10 more minutes on this topic. Go ahead. Dean.
Okay.
Okay, right. So the first claim that you made, that tariff isn't passed off to the consumer, yeah, that's wrong, because what would the point of the tariff be then? Okay, we see an increase in domestic production given tariffs because that is passed off to the consumer. Would you agree there?
No, absolutely not.
Okay,
The
so then
point-
why
the
do we see
point
an
of the
increase in
tariff-
domestic production given tariffs?
Because when you produce something in China, you can make it for cheaper, so your margin is bigger, so you can undercut
But will you make
prices.
it more expensive for the consumer at the grocery store by imposing those tariffs? Right, and then
Not
secondly, I
necessarily.
agree with you.
Again,
Okay.
because the China will pay the tariff to get their goods to the market because they
But
need
then why
access to
won't
the
we buy
market.
it? But then why won't we buy it? Because it costs more money, right? And that's
Yeah,
my
well,
whole
we're-
argument is that tariffs cause the end consumer to pay more at the grocery store, to pay more at Best Buy, to pay more at the car dealership.
Do you know what a
But
tariff
There's another
is?
point that you brought up there. It's a tax on an import. And there's another point that you brought up there about how we want to like spur domestic production of goods. I don't disagree. I absolutely agree. We should have a more industrialized economy where we produce goods here at home in America. We just disagree on how we get there, right?
How do we get there
support-
without tariffs?
Yeah, sure. Right, by driving further competition through the natural market. We do that via investment.
What's
we
the
do that by
natural market?
We do that by investing in money. Investing in money. That was crazy. Investing in the U.S. producers of goods, like the Chips and Science Act under Biden and Harris's administration, that invested billions of dollars into U.S. chip producers to further drive competition, right, with those imported goods, just via innovation in the product, right? And the fact that you, as a conservative, are sitting here telling me that we need a government to impose a regulation on the free market by tariffing those goods that are being imported to our country, it's just new. You know what I mean? Right?
Well, it
And
may
the-
be new to you because like your only context of Republican is like Reagan. But if you go back to Henry Clay and Friedrich List and the American system, Alexander Hamilton, the country was basically funded by tariffs until we had an income tax.
Yeah, do you know why?
We only had an income tax 100 years ago. Before that, the federal government made its money from tariffs. And by the
but
way,
do you know
it's just
why?
basic mercantilism because we want to make the stuff. And by the way, when you say, well, we're just going to invest, it doesn't work. China's dollar goes 3 times as far because the standard of living is lower. They're rich in raw materials. They have an endless supply of labor, cheap labor. The idea you're going to chips and sciences your way out of China having systemic advantages, economic factors of production like labor. They have 1.5 billion people. You're not going to pass a bill that's going to change those
Nick is
fundamental
right.
imbalances in the economy. We have
Then how about
capital,
we meet in
we
the
have
middle?
tech, we have
Then how about we meet in the
entrepreneurship,
middle?
they have labor. Okay,
Then how
it's
about
the
we meet in
same
the middle?
reason. Hang on, and it's the same reason why we're even when we try to they call it friend shoring. We're going to take our factories from China and give them to our allies like Philippines. It's still going to China because they have all the cheap labor. You just can't compete with that. You can't compete with the fact that they make everything, they have all the people. So you agree that we should reindustrialize. You literally cannot do that unless you protect industry. And by the way, China has tariffs too. All countries have tariffs. We're the country that doesn't have tariffs. They're eating.
See, this is what I'm asking though. Was this kid like a child star or something? Where the fuck did this kid come from? This kid's got like a stage mom off screen managing his career, something like that. Like all of these influencers are just like they're failed actors. And this is the new venue with which they're going to actually be an entertainer, whether they're on the left or the right.
They're eating our lunch as a result. So, that's just not true. What you're saying isn't true.
No, Donald Trump's taken away the average American's lunch as a result. Like, once again, we've already went over how tariffs can cause prices at the grocery store to go higher.
This is such
Every
a
single time we've
stupid
historically
argument.
increased tariffs on China, what have we seen? A reduction in U.S. agricultural exports. What did Trump have to do when he imposed his tariffs on China? He had to bail out American farmers with $28 billion. You say you want American industrialization. You say you want more U.S. production of goods. But then you also say that you want these tariffs on China to absolutely destroy American farmers. And you want the average American to be worse off, meaning they have less economic mobility to go and start a business in the first place. This is why Kamala Harris's tax policy is better, right?
This
Because
is
what we're
like
not going to do.
Democrat talking points.
Yep.
Okay, well, can you
True.
dispute them?
Yeah, like I said, tariffs, the other country will pay the cost of the tariff. Okay, you're saying consumers will pay it, and that's just wrong. Okay.
Okay, so
Under
you
the
don't
Trump,
think that
Trump
tariffs drive
administration,
up
hang
the
on.
price of the price of
Trump
goods?
administration, I'll give you a perfect example. Trump administration implemented tariffs against Canada, against Europe, against China. Inflation was low. Oh, hang on. Inflation was like 1.3% under Trump. Okay. So if what you're saying is true, that the cost of the tariff would be passed down to the consumer 1-to-1 or even significantly, inflation would not remain at or around 1%. Why? And by the way, Biden administration has tariffs too. Inflation is very high, but the cost of goods going up has everything to do with fuel prices going up.
Hey guys, we
Because
got
of the
5
war
more
in
minutes.
Ukraine.
Hey,
And it's
we have 5 more
everything
minutes.
to do with
5 more minutes.
God.
Nick,
Okay.
A very
it.
crucial point. A very
with the
crucial point
quantitative
here.
easing.
If they don't cause inflation of the pricing of goods at the grocery store, then why would we see an increase in domestic production?
Because it will make it competitive for America to make the same things.
How?
If China, because it's basic math. If it
Explain it to
costs,
me.
I'm going to if you stop interrupting me. If it costs less to make something in China because they have abundant labor than it does in the United States, then China can sell it at a lower price because their cost is lower. But if we make them pay more to bring their goods to the market, then they have to sell it for more, or they have to pay the tariff and they make less profit.
Nick,
and that makes
you
it
just agreed with
profitable
me.
for
If they
American
have
companies
to-
to make.
if
Can you
Chinese
stop interrupting
profit-
me? Can you hang on?
Chinese products cost more.
Can you
what does
stop
that
interrupting
mean
me,
for the
please?
consumer? Sure.
It adds, but who pays the cost? China pays the cost to bring it to the market, not the consumer.
And who
Okay.
pays the cost once it's in the market?
Well, the consumer does.
Thank you.
But they're buying
5
but they're
minutes.
buying what they're already buying. They're just buying it from an American producer.
Yeah, for a higher price, right?
Yeah,
So the argument this kid is making is essentially this kid wants to reward China by allowing China to sell the exact same goods in the market that American companies are selling for significantly less because it costs less to produce them in China. And he's arguing that American consumers should be able to buy cheaper shit from China, which fundamentally enriches China, which fundamentally helps China, which fundamentally like impacts American companies because there's no possible way for American companies to compete with China. This kid thinks he's owning him because he's saying, "Yeah, we should give all our money to China, bro." Like, the point of tariffs is that China doesn't flood the market with cheaper products which will outcompete national products. This kid is beyond. Yeah, the entire point is that American companies cannot be effective in a market where China is allowed to essentially dominate without even really trying, and that it is not beneficial to America to allow that to happen.
so for a slightly marginally higher price so we can have American production.
Okay.
But there's
Yes,
also
there we go.
economies
There
of
we go.
scale.
Thank you.
It
Thank you.
stimulates American industry, and then America's able to produce what China would ordinarily produce.
Okay. All right. And America will produce it for a more expensive price because we don't have as cheap of labor as they are in China.
It protects the American industry, which is
By causing inflation, right? Can you agree with me there?
marginal. It's
Okay,
marginal.
Marginal increases.
But either way,
we're getting somewhere.
but it's really neither here. Well, and I said that earlier, so it's the same thing. But either way, the Biden administration has tariffs too, so it's basically a moot point.
No, it's not a moot point because once again, he wants to impose tariffs on all.
But you
all goods
disagree
imported.
with the Biden administration's policy, right?
Absolutely right.
Okay,
I do
so
disagree with tariffs.
what are we even arguing about?
110%.
Trump had tariffs.
Well, I mean,
Biden has tariffs.
no,
Tariffs
no, no.
protect industry
See,
in America.
this is-
You support that.
No, so the
And
reason
yet-
that this is the reason that this is a bad argument is because Trump wants more tariffs, right? I don't understand how this isn't evidently clear. I think what you're trying to do is kind of confuse people between me saying that tariffs that Biden and Harris imposed were bad, and me saying that when Donald Trump is elected, he wants to impose all tariffs
That's
on all
just not
imported
true.
goods. Right? One
That's
is
just not
worse than
true.
another. Okay, so
They're
you
not.
say that
They're
he
not
I wanna
doesn't
putting
want to
punch
impose
tariffs
this
on
kid in
tariffs.
the
all
face.
imported goods.
Not gonna
Okay,
lie.
does he just want
I
to
would
keep the
never
ones on
do
China?
that. I don't believe in violence, but
It's
if I
going to
did
be
believe
on.
in violence,
I don't
I
know
would
the
punch
Trump
this kid in
policy,
the
but it's not
face.
on all imported goods. That's just a
Okay, so then
Democrat
how is he
lie.
going to pay for the $4.8 trillion associated
You can
with
fact
his
check
tax
that.
cuts?
Borrowing.
Then how's he going to pay for
borrowing?
borrowing
like
from
they
who?
pay for all the, like how they paid
Borrowing
for
from-
175
Treasury?
billion to
And what's
Yeah.
the biggest expense of our government?
liabilities.
Liabilities? No.
One in the chat. Now, okay, we do not believe in violence here. This is a fantasy. This is not real. One in the chat if you want to punch this gay blonde kid in the face. Two in the chat if you think that he's doing just great and you do not want to punch him in the face. And I disavow anyone actually punching him in the face. I don't actually want this to happen. I'm just saying that if you could, in a made-up believe fantasy world, one, if you want to punch him in the face, two, if you would not punch him in the face.
It's interest on
Medicare,
debt.
Social Security. That's totally wrong.
No, the biggest expense of our federal government is interest on debt.
It's a lot of ones.
Totally wrong.
It's a lot
Okay,
of ones right
I
there.
don't think that's wrong.
That's
In fact, I think that is
liabilities.
totally correct.
Okay, we're
Okay.
wrapping up on time here. Let's.
Well, you're wrong on the Trump
Yeah,
policy
let's
and you're
move
wong on
on.
spending. You're just
Yeah.
We'll give a
wrong.
1 minute
Exactly.
closing to
Exactly.
Dean
Bless his
started,
heart.
so we'll
Bless
a
his
1 minute
heart.
closing for Dean and then 1 minute for Nick.
Excellent.
Oh, you could go first, Nick.
Who gave the first opening statement? You or me?
It was Dean
I
who
did.
started first.
Yeah, so
Oh.
Dean, we want to let Nick
That means
finish.
I
Dean,
go
you
last. That means I go last.
start. Dean, you start.
And then Dean, the next one, Nick will start.
Okay, all right, yeah, that's fine. I was just looking for.
Yeah.
source to justify-
Rumble Boomer says it's very difficult to listen to this liberal child without having violent thoughts. See, that's exactly my point. Exactly.
what I said there. So yeah, my closing statement would just be, all right, obviously I think that economic policy is a very prime reason to vote for Kamala Harris because she's going to make the average American better off. Donald Trump is not going to make the average American the better off. He's going to make them worse off with his tariffs. Right, Nick essentially did concede there, saying that tariffs do cause higher prices for the consumers at the grocery store. And then Nick also just kind of says that he doesn't really care about debt. Okay, so
True.
If you want more debt, vote for Donald Trump because he's going to throw $5.8 trillion
not
on our
voting for
nation's debt.
Trump.
Meanwhile, Kamala Harris's proposed tax policy is going to be self-sufficient over the 10-year lifespan of the bill. And then one other final point here, there's much more reasons why Kamala Harris is a better candidate than Donald Trump that we didn't get a touch on, such as the fact that we probably shouldn't be voting for a rapist. We probably shouldn't be voting for a religious persecutor. We should probably be voting for the individual that wants to enshrine federal protections for all 170 million American women and girls' right to choose, right? And plenty of other reasons that we didn't get to.
What
And I'm
a
sad that we didn't.
cock.
And hopefully we might be able to get back around to it later. But
I hate
I'll
this
go ahead and
kid.
get to you the rest of my time. Take it away.
Yeah. All right. Well, Aiden and Sneeko, could we do immigration? I feel like that's a big one. We could do a few of these other issues
Well,
because
real quick,
it's a big
before-
issue.
Can you just do your statement really quick?
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, can we make that one of the topics?
Well, that's
Wait,
something that we had to
sorry.
talk about prior. Dean, if you would like to as well, we could do that this next.
Can you
And I-
repeat that? I was a little bit.
You want to talk about immigration if you want to keep Trump or Kamala going. We have other subjects, but on the subject of Trump and Kamala.
You guys didn't agree to that prior, but if you guys want to agree to do an immigration, we can do that next. It's up to you guys. Both of you have to agree.
Yeah, you just want to see. I mean, like maybe we could throw it in there at the end. I mean, get through the 4 topics we have agreed upon.
Sure.
And if there's time, we might be able to talk about it.
Okay. So please give
Yeah.
your closing statement, Nick.
Yeah. So, I mean, my closing statement on Trump, I don't even think fiscal policy is the biggest issue. To me, that's really a side issue. And the reason is because both parties are profligate spenders. Republicans, Democrats are both profligate spenders. Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden, they're all huge spenders. They're huge spenders on the military. They're not touching liabilities. You know, there's talk about tax cuts, increasing the deficit. You could look at the Laffer curve and, you know, debate whether that's really the case. I mean, the theory behind tax cuts is that it stimulates economic growth, which it certainly does. It brings in more tax revenue. Maybe you find that convincing. Maybe you don't. Point is, neither party's going to rein in the deficit. I just don't think it's an issue. In terms of tariffs, the consensus has changed. Democrats and Republicans used to be free traders. They're not anymore. Bill Clinton, Bush, Obama were free traders. They're just not anymore. Trump is not a free trader. Biden's not a free trader. Trump has tariffs. Biden has tariffs. And that's because there's a recognition that we need to have a supply chain in America. 85% of the economy in America is services. Only 15% is construction, agriculture, and manufacturing. And this is it's not only a national security issue, but it's also a jobs issue. We need to make stuff in America. The only way that we're going to beat these other countries that are undercutting us with wages is with tariffs to protect our industries. And yes, that does result in technically marginally higher consumer prices, but it's more important to have good jobs in industry.
All right, that was good. So we'll circle back to Trump and Kamala, but to keep it on the subject, we have 4 very different topics. Right.
Real quick before, I just want to say thank you both for giving you guys, you guys are letting each other talk and stuff. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Aiden Ross and Sneeko are 2 of the most annoying people on the internet, in my opinion. I'm just throwing that out there. Thank you, Nick, for being a member of the channel for 24 months. Basic economics to make when it's cheaper to make in China and jobs go there. What money will Americans have without jobs because they're in China for cheap labor? Exactly.
Get that. But go ahead, Sneeko. I'm sorry to cut you off.
All right. So the next subject that we agreed upon was Christianity. But to make it interesting,
Christianity.
Nick, we can be more specific. We could talk about Christian nationalism.
Sure.
Oh, good.
Okay. So the subject will be: is Christian nationalism good or bad?
Good.
Okay.
And, well, let's start with Nick because we started with Dean last time. We'll do let's do 3-minute intro. I'll give you a 1-minute warning, and then I'll give Dean a 3-minute intro, and then we'll go free flowing. Then if it's interruptions, we'll time it. But I think it was good so far. But Nick, take the floor. 3 minutes.
Here is why I think Christian nationalism is generally probably an okay idea. And I say this as someone who's not a Christian, and I'm not going to become a Christian, and I don't want to give any groypers any hopes that I'm going to be, converting to the Catholic Church anytime soon, because I'm not. However, we have a very real problem in that politics in the United States is almost completely, well, not almost, politicians in the United States are completely cucked to Israel. So what I think that Nick is proposing in terms of having like a Christian nationalist or Christian monarchy or like whatever he wants, I think the point of it is to be the counterbalance to all of our politicians being beholden to a foreign entity. And if people in power are making decisions based more on like a moral framework rather than on a being cucked to Israel framework, then things would probably generally be better. And I actually do think that does make a little bit of sense. I'm not I'm not going to convert to Christianity or anything, but it's not my impression that Nick and the Groypers want every single person to involuntarily be forced to become a Christian. What they want is for Christian men to be running the government. And I've thought a lot about this, and I'm like, would that actually fundamentally change my life in any significant way? And I've kind of decided that no, it actually wouldn't really change my life in any significant way as long as I'm not forced to become a Christian. I don't have a problem with actually genuinely like Christian people making decisions based on like actual Christian values, not this fabricated like Handmaid's Tale bullshit. I don't think it's going to turn into the Handmaid's Tale. I don't think that's what they're going to say, and or what would actually happen. And so that's why I say I'm generally in favor of the idea, because I do think it would shift things back in a different direction that would probably be better than the situation we have now.
Okay. Well, I believe that America should have a religious government. We should have a Christian Catholic government. And, we have to face the fact that liberalism has failed. And the best example that liberalism is failing is that we're not having enough kids. The society, the civilization that doesn't have kids will cease to exist, and it will lose, and it is losing. Liberalism around the world is receding, and these more ancient, tribal, perennial cultures are thriving. Islam is the fastest growing religion. China is on the rise. Tribalism, racialism, all these things, all these revanchist, historic ideologies are on the rise, and they're all beating back liberalism because liberalism is weak. It is ineffectual. It's causing all kinds of perversity, degeneracy. People are not having kids. It's just sort of like anti-human and inimical to the human body. So, I mean, in addition to Catholicism and Christianity being true, liberalism is clearly bankrupt. Liberalism is clearly having a hard time. I think we should replace our state religion of liberalism with the state religion of Christianity. And I'm interested to see where Dean wants to take it, because obviously it's a huge topic, but I think we should have a Catholic country, not a liberal atheist one.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of different ways that a conversation about Christian nationalism can go. I mean, I've debated people on Christian nationalism before that will concede even if Christianity's false, right? We should still be, right, a country that upholds Christian nationalism because it promotes better outcomes. But I think there's a couple points there that you made I'd just like to respond to real quick about declining birth rates, immigration. That's crazy. Then about, a couple of the other points that you brought up. I particularly think that Christian nationalism is bad because it doesn't allow us to effectively legislate. Given like the Christian religion, right, we are led to believe that particular things are wrong because God said so. You said that you're a Catholic. I think in the Catholic faith, you'll kind of have a different range on how bad things are. Something can be a mortal sin, a venial sin. But something that I'd say here that is a very absurd conclusion given Christian nationalism is shit like blasphemy. So like blasphemy, as defined by the Bible, is the worst sin that anyone can commit. Does that mean that people should go to jail for life for blasphemy? Well, I don't know, because we know that people should go to jail for life for murder. And if blasphemy is worse than murder, and we're operating under a system in a society with a government that legislates on the basis of the Bible and these foundational beliefs as prescribed by Christianity, are we going to start sending people to jail for blasphemy too?
I don't think that's
I don't see how you'd be able to respond to that. I don't. And then like a couple other things that we could say here. The Bible promotes very harmful bad beliefs. I mean, 1 Samuel 15:3, God tells Saul and his men to genocide the Amalekite men, women, and girls. I bet if I was to engage in a conversation with this guy specifically about 1 Samuel 15:3, he'll end up saying that sometimes genocide's okay. Leviticus 25 verses 44 through 46. God tells the Israelites that they can own the non-Israelites as human property for life. I bet if I was to have a conversation with this guy about that topic, he'd end up saying that no, slavery hasn't always been wrong, alongside other things, right? So we could talk about how Christianity is false. We could talk about how it doesn't allow us to effectively legislate. We could talk about the absurdities that are already present in the Bible. But one last point that I'd like to bring up is if you're going to make an argument on the basis of the efficacy and the outcomes in which it would generate in society, which seemingly you started to there, well, what if we find another religion that generates better outcomes than the one that you hold to? Okay, so the reason that you want a Christian nation is because it will promote human well-being and happiness. People are going to be having more kids and following these commandments. They'll be doing good. No degeneracy, none of that shit. Well, what if I told you that the LDS church had even better outcomes than the Catholic church? Would you all of a sudden be in support of an LDS-led state? Probably not. Okay, right? So that's another contradiction on its own. So feel free to kind of pick and choose there, respond to the point that you want, take it away.
Yeah, so you said about birth rates or immigration. Well, here's the problem. Okay, one, the people that have liberalism are killing themselves. Okay, so the people that invented liberalism, that live in liberal societies, literally and figuratively are killing themselves. They're committing suicide. They're dying.
Well, the guy that you worship,
okay, are you going to interrupt me like 30 seconds into my rebuttal? That's crazy. No confidence in liberalism. They commit suicide. They die from despair. They're addicted to drugs, all kinds of things. They're all dying over there. Okay, we're dying in America. We're dying in Europe. And by the way, these people come from non-liberal or illiberal societies, and then their birth rate goes down. So even if you wanted to argue, oh, well, like, we could salvage liberalism with an endless supply of immigration from illiberal societies that have kids, when they get here, their birth rate goes down. And these are not liberal people. They come from illiberal places like China or Africa or Latin America. They come here, they assimilate, and within a few generations, the birth rate goes down because liberalism is suicidal. With regard to the question about efficacy and outcomes, I'm not arguing that we should have the religion with the best efficacy. I said liberalism has failed. And we know it's failed because it's committing suicide. So clearly liberalism as a system is not working. And that's why, it's such a radical notion. People think that we would have blasphemy laws or religious laws. They think it's a radical notion. It's unthinkable. The current system must be replaced. It's an imperative. It's not a question of, whether or how or anything like that. It simply must be because it will cease to exist. And so that's really the crux of the argument. Why it should be Catholicism. It's because Catholicism is true. But the point I'm trying to make is for people that say, it's so radical that we would go backwards. I would say we went backwards with liberalism as evidenced by the fact that it's not even reproducing itself. And that's a huge problem. With regard to the stuff about the Old Testament, I mean, look, the Catholic Church, Christians today are not in favor of genocide or slavery. If you want to get into that, this is just like new atheism 101. Are you an atheist? Are you an atheist or something?
I'm an agnostic, but I wouldn't
Okay.
particularly
So
use these
it's-
verses in the Bible to say that your religion is false. I use these verses in the Bible
know.
to say that your religion's absurd. To
I
say
know,
that your
wait,
religion
but
is false,
I
I'd
just
probably
wanted to
use other
ask you
arguments.
that, and then let me finish the last point. So it's very funny when atheists who have no objective source of morality, it's like, you know, their morality is something like, hey, man, just leave everybody alone. What if I disagree? What if my morality says, well, I want to kill everybody or something? What if the majority of people said our morality says, well, we want to harm and we want to rape and we want to do this and that? An atheist has no God that says, well, you know, so-and-so has the authority to say this is correct. That's a problem. And yet they have a problem with blasphemy laws. It is good to have a God that is a source of authority, that gives us our morality, that is unquestionable. With regard to the Old Testament, if you want to get into the debate about, you know, what's bad, I would start with the question of how do you know what's bad? You claim that certain things are bad. You don't know where good and bad comes from. And how do we know the good and bad are even real? If we're all material, if we're only atoms.
I don't think the good and bad are real, but we're not going to have that discussion right now. I generally believe in karma. I believe that we will experience whatever we put out into the world. And so if you want to experience good things, put good things out into the world. If you want to experience bad things, like how you define them as bad, painful, like whatever, put bad things out into the world.
Atoms and we don't have souls. Why does it matter what happens to any of us? I mean, what is justice? Is there such a thing as the conceptual? If there is only matter, where is the conceptual? Can we see it? Can we feel it? Is it located somewhere?
Do you want to know one of those points?
So, well, and I'm making a point here. I'll wrap it up quickly. So for an atheist to point to the Old Testament and say, well, you know, how could a God who does these things be so immoral? I would say to the God.
If you murder people, then you are going to experience the repercussions of that, which means that you are going to be murdered. Your loved ones are going to be murdered. You're probably going to have like karma that's going to follow you around from lifetime to lifetime. So when you get reincarnated in your next lifetime, it's probably going to be a short lifetime because someone's going to kill you because you did it in this lifetime. So you will experience the repercussions of whatever it is you do. So be prepared for that.
Godless. What is more?
You'll also just go to jail, by the way. You'll also just go to jail in this lifetime because we have to deal with actual real world realities. If you kill someone, you're probably going to go to jail for it. Probably because you're not the brightest crayon in the box. You think you are, but you're not.
And who are we if we're not just stardust being rearranged? I mean, slavery, these things, these are conceptual. It can only exist with a real philosophical viewpoint, not with this kind of lame, like, Sky Daddy isn't real sort of stuff. So, you know, there's just a lot of assumptions there that kind of need to be interrogated.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think what needs to be interrogated is the fact that you asked me, well, what do I do if a group of people likes to murder, rape, and kill others? What if God said that?
Then
you know, I think that's the question that we need to ask.
Then we would have to do it.
Wait, really? If God told you to rape and kill a baby, would you do it?
Well, God would never do that because God is good and those things are evil.
True.
Okay, so
God
raping
would
and
never
killing
do
is
that.
evil. So when he commanded people to
you
kill
said
the babies in
raping
the Amalekite
babies.
in 1 Samuel 15:3, that was evil?
God is telling us to rape and kill babies right now?
So specifically about killing, in 1 Samuel 15:3, he did command Saul and his men to kill the Amalekite babies.
Rape babies? He told them to rape babies?
No, to kill babies.
Well, yeah, then if I were one of those guys, I would have done it, but not rape them.
Okay, so if God commanded you to kill a baby today, would you do it?
Yes.
Okay, so why would you kill a baby, but you wouldn't rape a baby?
Because that would be cruel or something.
Wait, is killing a baby not cruel?
In the Old Testament, it worked differently.
No, I'm
That's
talking
a
about
fallen world.
You particularly said that you would kill a baby today if God asked you, but you
If God
wouldn't
told
rape,
us, yeah.
rape a baby if God asked you. So how
Not
can you
rape.
kill a baby today but not rape a baby?
God would never do
Because
that.
the context of the Old Testament is that it's a fallen world. And that's the context you're talking about. You said that in the Old Testament,
Dude, we're not
God
talking
said
about
to-
dude, please
Hang on.
answer
Yeah,
my question.
we
This is a
literally
damning
are.
non-answer.
Well, if
You
we're not
told me
talking about
today-
wait. If we're not talking about
Oh
the
my
Old Testament,
God,
what are we
this kid
talking
is so
about?
annoying. Shut the
about
fuck
the
up.
fact that you told me today if God commanded you to kill a baby, you would do it. And then I followed that up by asking you if God commanded you to rape a baby, would you do it? and you
But
said
God
no
wouldn't do that
because
because
that's
it's evil.
cool.
God wouldn't do that.
Okay, so killing a baby today, you would do if God commanded it, but raping a baby today, you wouldn't do because God wouldn't command
God
it.
you-
wouldn't
first
do
of
that.
all-
Are you making the implication that
First
killing a
of
baby
all,
today isn't evil?
This guy is having a
No.
fucking
What you said is that in
conniption.
the
Okay, so
Old
then you wouldn't do
Testament.
that either, right?
Well, hang
Oh
on,
my
hang on.
Seemingly a
Let's
contradiction.
rewind. Let's
Shut the
rewind
fuck
because you
up.
said in the Bible God says to rape babies.
so
Can you
proud
just
of
No, I
retract
said
that? Because
kill
that never
babies.
happened. No,
No,
if
I
you
said kill
rewind.
babies.
Yeah, okay. People can rewind the
He's
clip.
so proud of himself.
You said kill and rape babies because you got a little
We'll-
and rape
we'll
people
clear
because you
this
got
up
a
so
little
easily.
ahead of yourself because you got a
Nick,
little
we'll
ahead of
clear this
yourself.
up so
That
Nick, I
never
will literally
happened.
clear this up so easily.
Okay.
If I said God commanded Saul and his men to rape babies in 1 Samuel 15:3, I misspoke. In
Okay,
1
thank
Samuel
you.
15:3,
Thank you, yeah.
God commands
Because-
Saul and
because
his men
God
that's
is
the
to
around
kill
problem.
that.
babies. But you are not answering my question. This is a
I
damning
am, I
non-answer.
am.
Every single person watching the stream can see that you said if God commanded you to kill a baby today, you
This kid is damn. Look at. This is a perfect freeze frame on Nick. Nick is doing exactly the right thing in this freeze frame, because this kid is basically hyperventilating over a scenario that he made up. He is hyperventilating over a scenario that he fantasized in his head. And Nick is just like, this is fucking stupid. This is retarded. Nick is like, why did I do this? This was bad. Like why? Yeah, what if the baby was literally Hitler?
said you would do it. Can you affirm
Can we be
that
serious?
fact?
Can we be serious for a second?
We are being dead serious. Can you affirm the fact that you said if God told you to kill a baby, you
Can
do
we
it?
be serious? Can we grow up?
Why won't you
So-
answer my question?
Well, because we're talking about the Old Testament, are we not?
Dude, we're talking about today. How many times do I need to say that?
You're talking about the Old Testament. You're citing the Old Testament. You're talking about a specific verse in the Old Testament.
Oh my God, this
you
is
can
crazy.
look. You can.
Hey guys, I'm just saying, like, if you want to see me continue to stream this debate, maybe we could send in some super chats, show some love if you appreciate the fact that I'm streaming this. And I know that we're just kind of chilling and we're sitting back and watching, and that's cool. But throw in a $5 super chat, $10 super chat. This allows me to pay for my time doing this sort of thing with you guys. And so I'm gonna, like, I'll keep streaming it for a little more, but I want to see those super chats come up if you want to see the whole thing.
Giggle,
No,
but
I
can
specifically
we
asked you-
confirm that we're talking about the Old Testament? Is that correct?
That
What
is
are we
not
talking
correct.
about?
Exactly. I'll tell you exactly what we're talking about. We are talking about the fact that I asked you a damning hypothetical question. I asked
It's
you
it's
if
not.
God
It's a
could, one
cheap,
moment. Do you mind if I have
it's a
30
cheap
seconds?
context. No, it's
You're
a cheap
interrupting me
context
because you don't want me to
denial.
talk because you know that you're losing.
Don't give in, Nick.
Yeah, because the Old Testament says bad things in it. I know. I'm a new atheist, and I just discovered. Here's my answer to your question, if you allow me to answer it. I know you want a cheap gotcha question, but let's add a little context. The Old Testament
Please,
takes
explain
place in a fallen world. We live in a fallen world because we have free will. Okay, God created human beings. Human beings disobeyed God and sinned. Because we disobeyed God and sinned, we have the penalty of death, war, shame, guilt, pain at birth, all these things. In the fallen world, people kill. In the fallen world, people kill, people lie, cheat, steal. Cain kills Abel.
Thank you, Kazmar.
In the world, the fallen
Thank you,
world,
Bot.
before Jesus Christ arrived, it was a
Appreciate
world with
it.
slavery and warfare and iniquity. It is in this context that God commanded the chosen people to kill certain tribes to establish their
Thanks,
survival, to
Wolfgang.
secure a line for the coming of the Messiah. God does not approve of killing because it says in the 10 Commandments,
Thanks,
thou shalt not
Brucey.
kill. God does not approve of rape because it says, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, and so on and so forth.
Appreciate
So
it.
God obviously does not support killing, raping. Oh, would you kill and rape a baby? No. But in the Bible, God prescribes laws and
We must
specific
continue,
actions
indeed.
at the beginning of the world,
thanks,
which
Dragon
was
Balls.
fallen without Christ, without a Savior, in sin, for the survival of the chosen people. So the rules worked a little bit differently in the Old Testament. It doesn't mean that,
Thanks,
and of
Renan.
course, taking a life
You
in
mind
and
if I
of
hop in?
itself, hang on. There's a difference everybody knows between killing and murder. If I go and murder you for no reason, that's immoral. If I
Thanks,
kill in
Jan.
self-defense or self-defense of my children,
Yeah.
it's a
would
different
would
story.
you want to live the baby?
God commanding the people of the
yeah.
Old Testament is an extraordinary exception based on the fallen old world. That's one. Two,
Appreciate it, guys.
when
Please
Jesus
allow me to
Christ
speak.
arrives, He fulfills the law and saves people from hell. Before Jesus Christ arrived, nobody could even go to heaven. And it was a world of iniquity. And Jesus Christ changed and created this modern world that we're living in.
I hear you.
So now here's the thing. God is the authority. If God commands us to, look, I know it's a complicated issue. You can't fit it into a TikTok where you do the Destiny drive-by and say, Trump's making your grocery prices higher. But it's actually a complicated issue. We're talking about evil, the existence of evil. So does that mean that God is not an authority? Of course not. God is an authority. Would God command us to do those things today? Probably not. But if he did, in a hypothetical scenario, we'd have to trust God if we truly believe in God. Otherwise, you would say something like, we know more than God, or God is not good, or we're better than God. And that negates the concept of a God or good itself. So that's my answer to your, so when you say killing babies, it ties into like abortion policy. It's just like cheap, low IQ, left-wing bullshit. But anyway, go ahead.
Cool. Thank you. So I hear everything that you just said. I will give that a great response. I sure did. But before I give that a response, I wanted to take a brief moment to go back to the question that I was attempting to get you to answer prior. I understand that you just kind of gave me the story of the Old and New Covenant. We had different rules before, the Messiah came back down, created the New Covenant, whatever. I get it. Thank you. Okay?
Thanks,
but the question that I
Moxie.
asked you was, if God commanded you to kill a baby, would you do it?
Yo.
You said yes.
I heard about this. That he got like some domestic violence charge or something. And he has, I don't keep up on the drama of influencers, but I heard that there was like, he has some other girl and he grabbed her tits on stream or something. I don't know exactly what the deal is. If anyone knows more about this stick stuff than I do, like, let me know. But domestic assault, I didn't think Styx Hexenhammer had it in him, if I'm honest about it. Hey, thanks, Raven's Poetry. I appreciate it. TikTok brain rot. Yeah. This is part of why we are totally and completely fucked as a society, just so we're all clear.
I then asked you,
TikTok.
Nick Fuentes, if God commanded you to rape a baby, would you do it? And you should know that's too cruel. If you'd like to take 15 seconds to kind of clear up that gap, like, does that make the implication that killing a baby isn't
I answered
cruel?
the question.
You didn't.
Okay. Is this a debate about Christian nationalism, or is this like a weird new atheist? By the way, why do you think killing is wrong? Where do you get that information from?
So first of all, I don't think that killing's inherently wrong. I think that murder is wrong. Okay. The unjustified
okay. So you
termination of
agree
human
with
life.
me then?
Right. And then what I'd say here about murder is that's just going to be driven given my intuitions. I'm a subjectivist. We all know this, but I think you are too. Would you agree with me?
Subjectivist.
Would you agree with me that objectivism can be defined as like a stance independent, like truth?
Isn't this supposed to be about Christian nationalism?
It's an independent truth? What did you say? I didn't hear you.
Like a stance independent truth. That's what it means.
A stance independent truth?
Yeah.
Of independent truth, or that there is independent truth?
Okay. Wow.
A sentence construction doesn't make sense.
Okay, so like in philosophy, right? When we're referencing terms such as moral objectivism or moral subjectivism, we define objectivism given when I say murder is wrong, that is true independent of any stance, of any actor, of any mind. Okay, when I say
I understand what you're saying. I don't understand the construction. I'm not. You're like mumbling to yourself. Yeah, I believe. Subjectivism is that there's an independent truth. Yes.
Okay, so is morality independent of God?
No. No, because God is morality. God is good.
So a morality is subject to God.
By the way, it's actually accurate to say that that karma is not independent from God either, because God is everything. I'm just saying. Hey, thank you, the noticer. Thanks for streaming this. Can I possibly get unblocked on Twitter? Yes. Okay. Yes, you've paid me money and you have a Hitler cat icon, and so I will, because I have grace in my heart today. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 O's. Because I have grace in my heart today and you have a funny profile picture, I will indeed unblock you. There you go. You're welcome. Thank you. The quartering bailed him out of jail.
Okay. Ooh, could God create a box so heavy he couldn't lift it? Yeah, that's great. So if you believe
Wait,
that
that would be
killing
a
is not,
contradiction. I didn't give you
I
a
know.
contradiction. I just showed you that
I
you're a
know.
moral subjectivist.
See,
I know. Thank you.
I like this policy. I like this policy of like, if I block you on Twitter for being a dick, because if I blocked you on Twitter, you did something to deserve it. I'm just saying. And then if I block you on Twitter and you want me to unblock you on Twitter, instead of whining and complaining and stalking me for years and doing all this stuff, the correct thing to do is to just pay me money and to ask me nicely to unblock you. And that should be the policy moving forward. Like, if I block you on somewhere and you want me to unblock you, you pay me money and you say, Carlin, I'm very sorry for my obviously dickish act, whatever I did to get you to block me in the first place. Can you please unblock me? And I'll say, yes, I can. Don't do that shit again. We had a miscommunication about capitalism. That'll do it.
You. So
That's cute, huh?
So where do you believe that killing is wrong then? So you believe it's subjective. You don't believe it's absolutely wrong.
Yeah,
right.
Oh, what's that? Oh, what's that, Aiden?
10 minutes, guys.
Great. Yeah. So I mean, I could kind of give you a little bit of an overview of my stance here on morality. So metaethically, I'm just gonna be a subjectivist, a relativist. When we like to reference like why I think things are wrong, it's just gonna be driven my intuitions. I mean, like we could talk about different moral frameworks. I myself am what is called a threshold deontologist, meaning that I believe that like particular things can be always wrong, but meanwhile we should consider like the consequences of others. It's pretty interesting.
Is the Holocaust wrong?
Yeah, the Holocaust was wrong.
Objectively?
No, because objective truths in the context of morality doesn't exist. Nothing.
In your opinion, it's wrong
because that standard doesn't exist.
In your opinion, it's wrong.
In accordance with my index standard, it's wrong. Yeah, but I mean, just saying, oh, you believe in subjectivism, but I'm gonna like counter that by asking you, is it objectively wrong? That doesn't really achieve anything. I could literally ask you,
what is your qualification?
Was the Holocaust objectively wrong?
Of course, it was wrong. Of course.
Hang on, I want to make sure we pay close attention to the Holocaust section of the debate. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Milk Tea Groiper. I appreciate you guys. All right. This definitely isn't going to get anyone into trouble.
But you just agreed with me that morality is subject to God.
Because morality is God. It's identity, not subjectivity.
Wait, God is identical to morality?
Yes, God is good. God is the good.
Okay, so when I say that like
God
hugging your
is
mom
all
is good,
things.
I'm just saying that hugging your mom is God.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So can you just say that for me? Like every single time you kiss your wife, that's a really God thing to do.
Yes.
Love.
God is
good.
love.
An act of love that expresses love
Be of love, for that is all that we are.
is good. God is the good. God is being itself. We are participating in being.
Oh, wait, now we have some more issues here, because earlier you told me that God would never command you to like rape a baby because that's evil. But now you're saying that God is identical to goodness, meaning if God is all powerful in the sense that he could do anything that's logically possible and he's identical to goodness, why wouldn't he be able to tell you to rape a baby?
Did you say grape?
I did. TikTok words. I know.
Well, God also tells us that God's plan is very complex.
Why won't you answer my question?
Because these are just like low IQ.
No, that's not a low IQ point at all.
It
We're literally
actually is
talking
a
about
low
what you
IQ
think goodness
point.
is, what
Yes,
its
it
derivative,
is.
and how it apply to your God. Actually, we could extrapolate this out to the problem of evil
Oh
as a
my
whole,
God.
right? Like you actually said earlier that you think that the Holocaust is objectively wrong. Would you say
If
all
it
things
happened,
is my
if it
camera
happened at
doing
all,
that?
by the way. But yeah,
Okay, so
theoretically,
Aiden,
if it
If
happened,
it
in
happened.
theory.
Aiden.
No, I'm kidding.
See what
Of
I mean?
course it
Do you
happened.
see
Of
what-
course it
do you see what
happened.
do you see what I'm talking about? Like,
You
no,
Nick,
like,
what
do you
the
see who the
fuck,
fuck we're
bro?
talking to, Aiden? Yeah, this guy's over here saying,
Oh my
if the
gosh.
Holocaust
Oh
happened,
my
but then he
gosh.
asked me if the Holocaust is objectively wrong. Get a load of this joker. So I just want to ask you a fucking
Get
quick
a load
question.
of this joker.
Oh yeah, get a
How
load of this
about
joker. I
another
wanna-
joke? What do
how
you
about
get?
You need to unmute your
Get a
mic.
load of this.
You want to tell me another joke? Keep talking. I'm gonna go ahead and ask you a
No,
question.
that's
What do you
very
say?
good.
All things considered, that the Holocaust is wrong?
If it were real, yes. Yeah.
Oh
Absolutely.
my
And it is. And it is. And it absolutely
You're
is.
so fucking spineless. How the fuck can you sit in front of 45,000 people and say that the most
Oy
well-documented thing that has ever
Is
happened
it?
in history might not have happened? I want to ask you a question. How the fuck do you know that Jesus resurrected from the dead, but you don't know if the
Oh, this is everything. And I like the moment where Nick reached over and put on the camo hat. We need to rewind and do an instant replay. That was great. Oy vey. Francisco, both these debaters are around the same age. Nick is the debater's daddy when it comes to knowledge and wisdom. I think that is a very well-worded super chat. Thank you. That was great. Let's go back and watch a little. Let's just relive that beautiful, beautiful moment. Look at this kid. This kid is not straight. Everyone understands that, right? This kid has absolutely sucked cock before. 100%. See, Nick knows.
Why won't you answer my question?
Because these are just like low IQ.
No, that's not a low IQ point at all. We're literally
is.
talking about what you think
literally
goodness is,
is.
what its derivative, and how it apply to your God. Actually, we could extrapolate this out to the problem of evil as a whole, right? Like you actually said earlier that you think that the Holocaust is objectively wrong. Would you say
If
all
it
things
happened, if it happened at all, by the way. But yeah,
Okay,
let's
so
theoretically,
Aiden.
if it
What
happened,
the
in
fuck?
theory.
Aiden.
No, I'm kidding.
See what
Of
I mean?
course it happened. Of course it
do you see what the
happened.
fuck do you see what I'm talking about? Like,
Dude,
no,
Nick,
like,
what
do you
the
see who the
fuck,
fuck we're
bro?
talking to, Aiden? Yeah, this guy's over here saying,
Oh my
if the
gosh.
Holocaust
Oh
happened,
my
but then he
gosh.
asked me if the Holocaust is objectively wrong. Get a load of this joker. So I just want to ask you a fucking
Get
quick
a load
question.
of this joker.
Oh yeah, get a
How
load of this
about
joker. I
another
wanna-
joke? What do
how
you
about
get?
another? You need to unmute your
Get a
mic.
load of this.
You want to
Okay.
tell me another joke? Keep talking. I'm gonna go ahead and ask you a
No,
question.
that's
What do you
very
say?
good.
All things considered, that the Holocaust is wrong?
If it were real, yes.
If it were
yeah,
real.
absolutely.
Oh my
And
God,
it is,
you're-
and it is,
Obviously
and it
it's
absolutely
real.
is.
You're so fucking spineless. How the fuck can you sit in front of 45,000 people and say that the most
Oy vey.
well-documented thing that has ever
Is
happened
it?
in history might not have happened? I want to ask you a question. How the fuck do you know that Jesus resurrected from the dead, but you don't know if the Holocaust happened?
Shroud of
Please
Turin.
answer that question.
Shroud of Turin. Shroud of
Shroud
Turin.
of Turin, that's been taken by
100%.
the Shroud of Turin is a more reliable standard for evidence than the 250
Than the thing
independent
that
sources
didn't
that would
happen?
justify that the Holocaust exists.
Listen, this isn't a Holocaust debate.
Wait,
Let's
also
try
the
to
Shroud
stay
of Turin.
focused. This
No,
is a
I wanna-
Christianity
did you-
debate.
No, let's talk about it. The Shroud of Turin specifically, we had 4 different group of scientists take different
just
parts of
saying
it.
6
None of
million's
them
a
could
lot.
date it back to anything after 400
This kid's
years.
having a
AD.
heart
I'm just saying it's a
Can you
lot of people.
No. I want you to tell me how the fuck you know that Jesus rose from the dead with a lack of any historical evidence that exists
Oh, calm
during his
down.
lifetime from a first-person
Calm
experience.
down. This
yet
is a
you don't
factual
think the
debate.
Holocaust happened.
This is a factual debate,
so proud of
Kamala.
himself.
Tampon
Go-
Tim.
Yeah,
Hey,
go
listen,
for the
Tampon
emotions 'cause
Tim,
you know
this
that
is
you're
about
losing the
facts.
argument.
1, Shroud of Turin. Impossible to create other than with Jesus ascending into heaven. That's 1. 2,
What?
all I'm saying is that's a lot of bodies. Unless we forgot the technology to cremate them. Look, I don't know. I wasn't there, and you weren't either.
The Shroud of Turin. Wait. So you're telling me that it was absolutely impossible for some
Impossible.
impossible for the Shroud of Turin to exist? Then please
You
tell
don't
me
know
why.
the facts.
Then please
You
tell
don't
me
know
why.
the
What are the facts?
Tell me
Nick?
why the earliest carbon dating on the Shroud of Turin that we've gotten from the material used to create the Shroud of Turin is like from 1200 AD.
That's not true. That's not even true.
It's either
You
400
can
or
fact check
1200
that. That's
AD.
not even true. They just did a new study on it and they proved it's 100% real.
Hang on. I'm going to chat GPT this. Hang on. We're going to rely on chat GPT for our answers. What does science say about the authenticity of the Shroud? I don't even know how to spell Shroud today. Shroud of Turin. Let's see what AI says. In the meantime, guys, if you're enjoying this, please make sure you mount the like button for me. Please make sure you're subscribed on whatever platform you're watching on. I appreciate everyone coming out and enjoying this spectacle with us today. Let's see. That's 1988. Blood analysis. Controversies. Oh, okay. Can you... Hang on. Can you explain this in bullet points like I'm 5? I don't need a whole essay, ChatGPT. I just need the bullet points. That's like literally all I need. The Shroud of Turin is a cloth that some people think was used to wrap the body of Jesus when he died. Scientists tested it to see how old it is. A big test in 1988 said the cloth is about 700 years old, which means it was from the Middle Ages. Some people agree and say the test might be wrong because the part of the cloth they tested could have been from a patch that was later added. Blah, blah, blah. Last question. What do the most recent tests about it say about its age? The most recent tests on the Shroud of Turin continue to stir debate, but none of them have provided. Okay, so AI seems to be agreeing with the gay liberal. But there was a new study just over a month ago. Okay, so AI hasn't caught up. All right, I can accept that. If someone wants to tweet that new study at me, I would appreciate it.
They proved it's 100% real.
It's 100%.
So
it's like super real. That's one.
okay.
Two,
Okay.
we have secular historians that testify that
Secular
Jesus was a real person and was
Yeah,
crucified.
we do.
Josephus, Tacitus. We also have.
Wait, Josephus isn't secular. Let's get her facts straight. He was a Jewish
he was
historian.
Jewish. Okay, he was Jewish. I mean non-Christian. Thank you for the clarification. Are we
Does
good?
secular mean non-Christian?
Are we good? You know what I meant. I mean, if you were to say that a Christian source is biased, then arguably a non-Christian source would be unbiased. That's the point. Josephus, Tacitus. But you also have the earliest versions of the gospel stories going back to the 1st century. The earliest fragments of it go back to the 1st century. And you have...
To be very clear, I'm not making any claim about the Shroud of Turin. I'm literally just asking for the evidence. That's all I'm asking for.
People that went to their death. That's part of why Christianity spread. They went to their death. The Christians were martyred, testifying that they saw a resurrected Jesus. Liars don't go to their death testifying that something happened if it didn't. Certainly not, 11 out of 12 of them, or every single one of them. And that is the basis of how it spread in the ancient world. So, I mean, there's that. There's the Shroud of Turin. There's non-Christian historians. There's the fragments of the gospel.
Yeah, so
there's the prophecies that are fulfilled by Jesus in the New Testament.
So the Shroud of Turin, that shit just goes straight out the fucking window.
Hey,
we've carbon dated
Andrew.
it. Not a piece of it dates back to when Jesus was alive in accordance with Josephus and Tacitus, which you reported.
Carbon dating is flawed. Carbon dating is flawed. And there was
so
and that's not true.
It's earlier than it is, but we just don't know it.
And that's not true. Well, one, it's not real because carbon dating says that like dinosaurs are
Then
real.
how do we know that it was from
Jesus? Two, there was a recent study done.
How do we know it's from Jesus?
There was a recent study that was done that showed that it literally would not even be possible using the technology at the time to create a forgery. So it had to have been created by something with luminosity that just didn't exist back then for it to...
Hang on, let's do this quick fact check from Bot. We're doing a fact check live. Bot is the chief investigative officer of the cult, and she has sent me a study from July of 2024. Let's just do a quick fact check. New insights on blood evidence from the Turin Shroud consistent with Jesus Christ tortures. We're just going to read the we're just going to read the intro here because I'm not going to read this whole study right now. We're just going to read the abstract. After a critical revision of the main results obtained on the hermetic material of the Holy Shroud in Turin, this paper presents various news of both a macroscopic and microscopic nature. At a macroscopic level, news regarding the directions and positions of blood and the probable presence of pulmonary fluid are also discussed. Also, the blood stains on the left arm are examined to try to distinguish different kinds of hemetic fluid. At a microscopic level, 3 different types of blood are evidenced. Hypotheses have been formulated to distinguish pre-mortem and post-mortem blood and to distinguish, I don't know what that word is, on the basis of their difference in size. The presence of fibrin, earthly material, creatine typical of a tortured person, and the stacking of some word I don't know how to pronounce is also discussed along with their beta activity and fluorescence. Finally, the physical conditions relating to Jesus are discussed from a medical point of view, which could explain all the news of the hermetic material taken from the HST and are consistent with the tortures of Jesus Christ described in the Bible. That's interesting. We're not going to read that study, but if people want to read that study, it is called New Insights on Blood Evidence from the Turin Shroud Consistent with Jesus Christ's Tortures. Interesting information, Bot. Thank you for that. I do appreciate it. All right, back to the debate.
They didn't have that kind of technology back then.
Wait, I have a question.
It's impossible to create it any other way.
Do you mind if I ask you a question here? Okay, so I like this argument. Let's just go ahead and say that you're right. It was impossible to create without some sort of divinity. Jesus Christ is a prophet of the Islamic religion. Can you please give me any reason to believe that Christianity is true more so than Islam being true?
That's just a stupid question,
that this
because
luminosity
okay,
could be granted, either Islam being true
do you
or
know what
Christianity being
Muslims?
true.
Let me ask you this question: do you know what Muslims believe about Jesus Christ and the crucifixion? Can you tell me?
Prophet of God. He didn't actually die on the cross. Someone else stepped in his shoes.
Yeah. So what was the Shroud of Turin? Do you know?
Oh, it was over him in the burial.
So how would we know Islam isn't true? Well, let's see. If he wasn't actually crucified, then how would they lay the shroud over his body and his soul leave to make the imprint? So you don't even know what you're talking about.
I mean, no, you don't know what you're talking about, because given the Islamic
to work
religion,
it out on the fly, doesn't even know the order of how could the Muslim Jesus leave the Shroud of Turin imprint if he was never crucified and then therefore
because what did they say about the person that was crucified?
Hello?
What did they say about the person that was crucified? Who did he look like? Who did he present as?
But he wasn't Jesus, so he wouldn't have ascended into heaven and left the luminosity.
Oh,
it would be he was a lookalike.
Oh, yeah, that's terrible.
You could say that, but you don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know.
Normal people, they said it was a body double, someone who looked like Jesus. Normal people don't leave a luminous imprint on the shroud they put on them at the point of death. So the lookalike wouldn't have done that.
Wait, I'm just curious. Can you give me the study?
I don't know the name of it off the top of my head, but it was recently completed.
Sure, I would love.
You should investigate it. You'd probably become a Christian if you're being objective, even though you just fumbled and you don't know what Islam is.
Hey, real quick, let's do a 2-minute closing statement. We're going to start with you, Nick. Ready on to the next topic. Go ahead.
Sure. So, I mean, the good news is we just had a platform to demonstrate the historicity of the resurrection of Jesus. You do have real archaeological evidence like the Shroud of Turin. You have the Gospels. You have the...
Check this out. Check this asshole out. You waited 5 minutes to subscribe to my channel just to say this. Carlin can't cook. Yes, I can. Can't even look like a woman. I mean, people have been complimenting me on my sex hair literally all afternoon, so I don't know what you're talking about there. And isn't even a good host. I mean, I think I'm hosting pretty well in that I'm allowing people to watch the debate, and I'm offering commentary when I have it, because this is just a nice little hangout sesh. Guess what? You don't have to be here. I'm not going to block you yet just because we're going to make fun of you for a little while. You might continue crying in our chat, and that would amuse me.
The secular historians. No serious historian would testify that Jesus wasn't real or didn't live or wasn't crucified. And if Christianity spread throughout the Roman Empire, it's because of the well-documented martyrdom of the disciples of the early church. If you would go to your death testifying that something, a lie or a fabrication didn't happen, then maybe you believe they all faked it. I think that you go to your death only if you saw something true. And even still, people won't tell the truth if they're afraid of the mafia. You'd only go to your death telling the truth if it was God in the flesh. So I think that's just all obvious. With all that being said, we should have a Catholic government. We all have a conscience. The moral law comes from God. It's also written on our hearts, and we know it. And that's where our intuition comes from. The subjective idea that we get from rationality or empiricism that murder is wrong, that rape is wrong, the same objections agnostics and atheists raise against the Bible. And the thing is about the Old Testament, if people are turned off by that, it really...
This is just factually true. I have a great ass. I have an ass that women pay to get. I have an ass that women have surgery to get. It's just objectively true. Nick has seen me in person. He knows.
Really just amounts to the problem of evil itself. Evil exists in the world that was created by a good God. This is answered by the philosophical concept of the privation of evil. Prior to the coming of Jesus Christ, it was a world without the good, and therefore it was evil, and thus there was no mercy, compassion, those sorts of things. But it's a very complicated topic. I hope people aren't turned off when they hear, bad things happen in the ancient world, therefore there can be no God. It's obviously false. So that's just the long and short of the whole Christian debate distilled.
Yeah, sure. So I'll go to give my closing statement now.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
First, about the Shroud of Turin, anyone watching, feel free to look up any of the multiple groups of scientists that have dated the Shroud of Turin. Not a single one of them have been able to place a date on the Shroud of Turin from a point when Jesus was alive. So that's automatically thrown out of the window. About Nick's second point there, specifically about the people that went to their deaths after seeing the quote-unquote resurrected Jesus. This is something we see in all religions. I want you to go ahead and look up Prophet Muhammad's grandson in the context of the Islamic religion. He was martyred because of his beliefs in his grandfather being a prophet of God. That's present always. If this makes a religion true, all religions would be true. About your third point about the historicity of Jesus Christ, we have no first-hand accounts about Jesus Christ or his life. I do think that he was a real man that lived and died via a crucifixion, but Josephus, Tacitus, all these people came long after he died, and I think it's crazy that you're going to sit here and say that we have sufficient historical evidence to justify that Jesus Christ died and resurrected from the dead, but we don't have historical evidence to justify that the Holocaust happened and 6 million Jewish people died. I can give you a source right now that 6 million people did die. In fact, I could give you 200. For everyone watching, look up holocaustcontroversies.blogspot.com. It will give you an index to publish evidence on mass extermination in Auschwitz.
Wait. He just referenced a Blogspot website? Does anyone really even have a Blogspot website anymore? Blogspot was like, yo, Blogspot is going back. Like, Blogspot is like, that's old school. Yo, that's old school.
In Germany, there will be over 200 sources there, much more abundant evidence than what he could ever give for the existence of Jesus Christ and the idea that he's our God. So already contradictory there. And about the last point about the problem of evil, you said that the privation of evil was the fact that there wasn't a lot of good before Jesus came. No, the privation of evil is an ontological status of evil. Okay, so you don't know what your philosophical terms mean. You're also confusing what the problem of evil is. Okay, right? I would say my problem of evil would be the fact if God's all good, God's all perfect, and God's all powerful, then nothing evil should exist in the world that we live in. I wish that we could have a longer discussion about this, man. Get into philosophy, show you that you don't know shit. But I guess we're gonna move on to the next topic.
Thank you, guys.
It's funny.
Okay. We're gonna do topic number 3. Is
homosexuality bad? And we'll start with Dean again. I'll give you a 3-minute intro. Same thing in the next 3 minutes. And then I like the free flowing. It's been good so far.
I probably won't,
My position on homosexuality is that I don't care if people are gay. Doesn't make a difference to me. I wish Dean would admit that he's gay. I think he should just embrace it, obviously. But I don't care if people are gay. I love the gays, and the gays love me. Even the lesbians love me, even though I'm not a lesbian. But it's just objectively true.
Get an echo there.
go ahead. Go ahead, Dean.
All right, no worries. Yeah, so I probably won't need all 3 minutes. It'll be pretty easy. I don't think that being gay is wrong because there's no good reason to believe that it is wrong. There are just, multiple arguments that Nick could probably give me. One would just be gay wrong because Sky Daddy says so in the Bible. Another argument would give me something to do with like telos, like the natural function of our bodies. It would indicate that we have a prescriptive purpose on how we're supposed to use them. That's not how we're supposed to use them. I'd say that doesn't exist. At the end of the day, my stance is clear. Being gay is not wrong because there's no reason for it to be wrong. And I guess we'll just hear Nick's reason why it is wrong, because that's probably where we're going to start. So I'll concede the rest of my time. Take it away, Nick.
Okay. Yeah. I love the Sky Daddy thing. It's like the idea that there's a transcendent God. You think there's a man in the clouds and I don't because I listen to science. It's just like the most brain dead new atheist. I'm surprised this stuff still exists.
Bro, you told me that you kill a baby if God told you to. Who's
Hey, Dean. Yes, 3 minutes interrupt. Dean, no more interruptions.
Yeah, silence.
Yeah, no more
silence while
Dean.
I attack your position. So here's the thing. Okay, the homosexuality thing, I mean, we could argue that the faculty of the reproductive organs is to have sex. The purpose of them is to have sex. We have sexual organs to have sex, and sex is for the purpose of insemination, procreation. It's what it is. It's not, we can't get too creative. It always ends the same way and it's made for one purpose. We could argue that there is a prohibition of it in the Catholic Catechism and in the Bible. But I don't even think we need to
listen, Dragon Balls. You have talked about your escapades in my chat before. You outed yourself, okay?
go that far. It's really a question of whether we think people can do whatever they want. And this gets back to morality. If your conception of morality comes from, a vague idea of empathy or do no harm, against harm, then you would say there's nothing necessarily wrong with suicide, drug abuse, homosexuality, gluttony, laziness, all kinds of other behaviors, because people say we own our bodies. We can make decisions. We're empowered, and we can kind of do whatever we want as long as we don't interfere with other people, as long as there's not an imposition on other people. That's really the fundamental premise. I reject that premise. I think that because we're created beings, we're created with a sense of dignity. Our souls and our bodies are connected, and God wants us to be dignified. And I think we all recognize that there are things that are dignified and things that are undignified. It's undignified to be an addict. It's undignified.
Someday when Nick gets married and he has to have sex with a woman, he's going to realize that there's really nothing dignified about having sex. Can we? Not if it's good sex. I'm sorry. I understand the point he's making, but there is nothing dignified about having sex. That's actually part of the point. If your sex is dignified, you are not having good sex.
To be lazy. It's undignified to undergo a transgender surgery. It's undignified to do plastic surgery. And yes, it is undignified to engage in sodomy. And what is it? 1 minute?
Yeah, 1 minute.
So, sodomy is something that is violent, it's filthy, it's undignified, and I think it's a travesty. It's such an unfortunate thing. People celebrate it the way these flags, but they're waving a flag of really a filthy and violent and gross act that I think anybody has a natural sense of morality would reject it. I just think it's disgusting, and things that are disgusting are probably wrong.
Okay, your argument, it's disgusting, therefore it's wrong. Hey, Nick, got a question. Is shitting disgusting?
No. Shitting is wrong. Good point. That's a good point.
That's the argument you gave.
I never thought of it that way.
You said it's disgusting, therefore it's wrong. Yeah, shitting. That's pretty.
It's a pretty good heuristic. Yeah, it's a pretty good. Well, and look,
that's the account.
Well,
that's
if you want to, okay. If you want to talk about,
it's literally so fucking simple. If your argument is, this is
excited.
aesthetically unpleasing, therefore I find it disgusting, therefore I'm going to describe it as being morally wrong.
This is just
first of all,
low IQ.
Do you mind if? No, it's not low IQ.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Explain your syllogism.
Yeah, sure. So anyways, here's my perspective. You're just saying that you find it disgusting given your subjective mental states that lead you to the conclusion that it is something that's non-aesthetic. I think it's funny that you're giving me this argument when you've been chirping down my throat for the last 30 minutes that we need to rely on some objective standard to tell us what's right and wrong, even when we disagree. But now you're like, oh, my mental states are not conducive towards me finding this to be aesthetically pleasing, therefore it's morally wrong. It's just a little bit, out of reach for you. But overwhelmingly, I don't even know if I should give a dignified response to what you just told me. Nick just said, I don't like it, therefore it's wrong. You also referenced a couple other things there about just engaging in dignified actions. Once again, that's another, I don't like it, therefore it's wrong, right? I could say that being Nick Fuentes and talking about how 6 million people didn't die at the Holocaust is undignified, and all of a sudden, in my worldview, you're going to fucking jail, right? But I think that if you're going to make the argument that it's either wrong to be gay or it's wrong to engage in same-sex intercourse, you're going to have to give me a little bit more reason than the fact that it doesn't align with what's aesthetically pleasing to you.
Are you gay? Are you gay?
Yes.
Just to establish for the debate.
Yes, he is. Yes.
No, I'm straight. Unlike you,
No.
I'm empathetic. I'm able to place myself in other people's shoes and see the
No.
world from a perspective and realize
You're
what's
empathetic.
No, child. No. We all know the truth. You're not going to fool any of us. 1 in the chat if this kid is gay. 2 in the chat if this kid is not gay. Again, half of the men in my audience, at least, are gay. I have a massive gaydar in my chat right now. Everyone's saying this kid is gay. All the gay men are saying he's gay. The gay men would know. Yeah, verdict, gay. Fake and gay.
You
strong,
place
even
yourself
when I'm
in
not
gay
gay.
people's shoes?
Yeah, yeah, and I
So
can
you
see how
imagine
terrible
what it
people
would
like
be
you are.
like to be gay?
No, I imagine what it would be like to be at the receiving end of your
The
fucking
receiving
tyranny.
end.
Of
You
your
empathize
fucking
with the
tyranny.
receiving end, huh?
end.
What is
Yeah,
that
of
like?
like the tyranny of you and the other like white Christians that
Oh,
just come out here and
tyranny.
say,
I'm just gonna like spoil. Okay, listen. I have an actual PhD in psychology. I worked for a long time to get a PhD in psychology. And because I do have a legitimate PhD in psychology, what I can tell you is that straight men do not ever envision themselves being on the receiving end of anything. Because why would that even occur to straight men? Why would that even be a thing that would enter their mind? They're straight. They are not the receivers. The women are the receivers. The men, the straight men, are the penetrators. This is like basic 101 level stuff. If this guy has ever done any sort of pontification about being on the receiving end, that is a fundamentally feminine thing. That is the sign for woman. This is the sign for man. Straight men don't think about receiving dick in the ass. They just don't.
gay so bad, therefore we're gonna persecute these people.
If
Therefore,
you're
we're gonna
empathizing
write
with
a Bible
gay
that
man,
says
are
we're
you
gonna kill them.
okay? Interesting. Do you think about like gay sex? Do you empathize with gay sex at all?
Why is it always the
Things like
homophobic
that?
straight men that want to talk about gay sex?
It's a debate about homosexuality.
Yeah, you're talking, but you're getting a little bit too personal, Nick. I have a girlfriend. I'm sorry.
No, he
Okay,
doesn't.
I'm
No,
just asking.
false.
I'm just
Absolutely,
asking.
He does not.
So-
I
what I
know,
said-
I know.
I'm just
It's one of
asking.
one of the many. One of the many.
So here's the thing. I didn't say if it's disgusting,
Does his girlfriend have a collection of strap-ons?
it's wrong. What I mean is, it's a pretty good heuristic that something is discussed. If something is found to be disgusting, it's probably wrong. And you brought up fecal matter. You said shit. I'll say fecal matter. I'll be polite. Fecal matter is offensive to us. It has offensive odor. It has an offensive look and so on. Why is that? Why do we find it disgusting? Why are we
Because it's
repelled by
waste.
it? Because if we were to handle it and touch it, we would get sick and die. If we were to eat it, we would get sick and die. If we don't properly dispose of it, it would poison the community and we would die. So the act of excreting waste is not an evil act, but fecal matter in itself, it disgusts us on an instinctual basis for a very good reason. Okay. And that's why it's a heuristic. And we find the same thing about surgery and blood, why? And about snakes and about spiders. There's a reason for that. And the same thing is true about homosexuality. Now, it's like you look at the homosexual act, okay? If it's,
Do you mind if I respond to that?
Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
Sure. Yeah, you're just further like I look at it.
Further
it's
what?
gross.
You're
It's
just not
wrong.
hearing me.
So I am. So this same
You're not
intuition,
empathizing.
the same intuition that you're describing to me, and like the other how many people are watching, I don't even know, is essentially that you have this innate.
Yeah, Mecca. I'm low key on your team on this one. I agree. But they're young men. We have to let them. I'm just saying, no one should do anything they're uncomfortable doing.
Driven psychological response that when you look at this, it's bad. You kind of related this to looking at shit, and because when you look at shit, it's bad. That's like driven via the fact that if you eat it, it could give you like bacteria, it can make you sick, whatever. Okay, but here's my point: the same innate like prejudice-driven response that you are holding towards gay people that leads you to the conclusion that it's thereby wrong is the same innate-driven prejudice response from white supremacists towards black people. So what would you say to a white supremacist giving you the same exact argument that you're giving me about gay people, but about black people? What if they made the argument that they just feel on some innate behavioral level that it is just wrong to be black? When I look at black people, I feel this way and that way, the same way that you're describing to me right now. And the reason that I think this point is so important to bring up here is, well, you're just describing your prejudice.
Okay, well, I would say, first of all, I don't have a prejudice against gay people. I really don't. I'm describing the act. I'm describing the act of what they're doing, which is filthy. If you look at a guy walking down the street, for the most part, like let's say it was a guy wearing like guy's clothes, but he was gay, you wouldn't know he was gay, and your disgust reflex wouldn't be triggered. But when you think about sodomy, which involves a whole host of gross stuff. I mean, they have to take drugs to loosen their buttholes. They have to flush out their buttholes of poo because the penis is going where poo is. This is disgusting stuff. And the idea of it's disgusting. And it's the act which is disgusting. So it's got nothing really to do with prejudice or anything like that. It's that the act itself.
Yeah.
Hang on. And by the way, it's also universal. It's universal and it's instinctual. There was a study that was done, for example, that said that men who witnessed two gay men kissing had the same disgust reflex as seeing maggots. I'm sure you've heard of that.
Dude, Nick, I'm just trying to get you to recognize that.
Can you not interrupt me? Why interrupt me every single time? I'm trying to make a point here.
A white business owner in the 1960s would have said the same thing that you're saying about gay people right now about black people going into their business.
No.
I asked you a question. The reason why I'm interrupting you here is because you're not giving me a response.
It's a false syllogism. You're bringing in white supremacy to homosexuality is a behavior.
Can I tell you particularly? No, homosexuality is not a behavior.
It literally is, though.
Okay, so what do you say that
what is
would involve action?
Obviously, homosexuality is a behavior. It means if a man
sex.
If a man is attracted to another man but never has sex, is he really homosexual?
Oh, wait, I have a question. Was Jesus straight?
Yes.
I don't think he had a sexuality because he was God.
Well.
Okay, so it's perfect not to be
know about
attracted to
that.
women because Jesus was perfect and he wasn't attracted to women?
What are these false? It's always this like bullshit.
So, I have a question.
You don't like gay people. Wait. What about white people not liking black people? Was Jesus straight?
So what'd you say here?
Huh?
Right, you said if you never engage in gay sex, then you're not gay. So Nick,
I didn't say that. I said homosexuality is sex is an act. It's an act.
Oh, okay. So you said if you don't engage in gay sex, you're not homosexual because homosexual is predicated on the action.
I didn't say that. I said it's an action.
Yeah, so you're telling me if you don't engage in that action, then you're not that. Dude, how fucking do I need to write it on a piece of paper?
If you are a person that engages in that act, you are that person.
Right. So no, what I'm telling you is that sexual orientations are not defined upon the actions that you engage in.
What are they defined on?
On your attractions, right? And I'll give you a really good reason to believe this. Nick, at what age should you lose your virginity? Like 25?
I haven't. I'm Catholic.
Oh shit.
When to get married?
Nick, you're not straight by your definition because you've never engaged in the action of heterosexual intercourse.
True.
It's true. I'm asexual. I'm an asexual.
You can't get out of this one. So you're going to make a joke because you know you can't get out of this one.
It's not a joke.
Wait, so Nick, you're not straight?
Not yet. But I will be.
First here, folks, Nick Fuentes is not straight. Nick Fuentes is not straight, ladies and gentlemen. I want to make that one clear. I want to make that one very clear.
Asexual incel.
That was good. So do you now see why we should predicate the definition?
I really feel like Dean is not respecting Nick's sexuality here, and I really feel like that's very rude. Nick can identify as having whatever sexuality he wants to have. Those are the rules. We should all be accepting and inclusive. If Nick doesn't want to have sex with girls, he shouldn't have to. If Nick doesn't want to have sex with boys, he shouldn't have to. If Nick wants to wait until he gets married to a young, hot Italian Catholic virgin, then that is his choice. And until then, he can be an asexual incel if he wants. This is not rocket science.
Sexuality is incel. It's involuntarily celibate.
Rude.
So do you now see why we should predicate the definition of like straight and gay based upon
No, I think homosexuality is an act.
Oh, okay. So then you think being straight's an act too. All right.
Yes.
So Nick Fuentes not okay. That's the absurdity that I'll reach. If you want to say that like being straight is predicated based upon the action.
Mark's lives over on Rumble. Thank you for the $10 Rumble rant. Let's see. I think the saddest thing about this debate, Carlin, is hearing a young person who grew up on YouTube parrot early 2010s talking points word for word. The propaganda is deep, even inside the legacy media. Hey, I don't necessarily disagree with that. Mark's lives. Thank you for the super chat.
Then go for it. It just means that Nick Fuentes isn't straight. Okay. And then also, I want to talk about that action. So
you're empathizing with gay people. If you're envisioning yourself being gay, you're not straight either, buddy.
Exactly.
If you're empathizing, if you're getting in their head, getting in their shoes, getting in their wherever.
Okay.
Then
That's a bad
I
thing
think it
for me.
seems like you're kind of all the
And
above.
Nick,
but
And Nick, that's
I mean, look,
the bad
but this
thing.
is really
according to you.
childish.
No, I want to respond
The
to that.
question is whether
No,
it's moral.
Let me respond to that.
Please
let me
tell me
respond to
about
that.
your empathy. I want to hear about
Please,
it.
yeah, sure. So that's
Which
like a
partner
bad
do you
thing.
empathize more with? The one that's on top or the one that's on bottom? I'm curious.
Right.
Where's the empathy directed?
Right. I got a question. God's all knowing, right?
Here we go. Yes.
So God knows what it's like to get fucked in the ass by two dudes. So if God empathizes with it, why can't I?
That's great. Very good.
Oh, wait.
Very good. No, God doesn't empathize
God
with those
doesn't have
people.
an
God
ass.
casts those people
terrible,
off.
Terrible. Oh, that's so bad.
That's great. It's very low IQ humor.
It's very low IQ humor. No, you're
It
getting
is.
fucking dunked on repeatedly. I thought you'd be a better
You're
debater.
the guy
Nick
that said you're
Fuentes.
empathizing with gay people, and you're saying that
True.
poo isn't filthy or something?
Oh no, so once again, my argument is that you have absolutely no reason to believe that being gay is wrong, and the existence of yourself alongside others just like you that hold this baseless, trivial prejudice has led to generations
It's
of
not-
members of the LGBT.
Oh.
One moment, let me cook. That led to generations of
my
members
of the
God.
LGBT community.
Let me cook.
This
Let
kid
me
is
cook. You're
absolutely
getting a
Finish the
little bit
acronym.
frustrated. Sir, do I need to put the polka dots?
No.
with the candy
Give us
on
the whole
me?
acronym.
Yeah, so generations of the LGBTQ plus community, right, have lived under an oppressive system because
Oh
people
my
like you
gosh.
like to open up the front door of their house and then scream and shout how wrong it is to love another person in a consentful adult and non-incestuous relationship.
Ugh.
It is absolutely fucking insane to me. And here you're gonna say, "Oh, Dean, you're boring me because I'm able to empathize with other humans." Is that like a
Oh,
new
brother.
concept
Yeah,
to
no,
you?
because you're a
Oh
really
my
good person. Being in favor of
God.
gay sex means you're a really good person and you empathize with people and care. It has nothing to
It's
do
so
with whether
gay.
you believe there's a natural law or anything and things we ought to do or not do with our bodies. It's because you're a really fucking wholesome, good person.
Wait, what
You're
reason
a
do you have
wholesome
to?
chungus.
What reason do you have to believe, right, that we ought
It's
not
bad.
engage in
Look,
gay sex?
homosexuality is bad for people. I mean, it's an unnatural act because it's incompatible.
Wait, can
it's
you define unnatural?
It's filthy. It's violent. It doesn't work. I mean, what is a sexual act?
Wait,
what
can
is
you
a
please
sexual
define
act?
unnatural?
10 minutes, guys. 10 minutes on this topic.
Yeah, like the sexual act.
That's
I mean, it's very,
contrary to its purpose, contrary to its nature.
okay, so you're saying it's contrary to its nature. So you're
Yes.
saying that like every part of your body has a nature. The nature of the penis isn't to enter into an asshole.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, what's the nature of your lips?
To do everything that a lip does.
Like eat food, talk, speak.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So it's wrong to kiss your girlfriend because that's going against.
No, they're
the
made
nature
for
of your
that
lips?
too. They're made for that. That has a
That's
purpose in
love.
sexuality as well.
If you could say that your lips are made for kissing your girlfriend, why can't I say that the pee-pee's made for being inserted into the asshole?
Because the asshole isn't meant to be penetrated. Because when that happens, it has long-term health effects. You could look, there are a lot of like ex-homosexuals that talk about how they have long-term, I mean, I don't want to get graphic, but they have to wear
Long-term health
diapers.
effects
They have to wear
equal- so-
diapers
So
because it's not
long-term health
natural.
effects equal unnatural.
Yeah, if you're persistently doing something that leads to long-term chronic problems like that, yeah.
Okay, wait. I think that
Also,
this is another.
it's dirty,
Scribe, I
and
think
that's
that
why
this
there's
is another-
disease that
I
results
think
from
that
that
this
as
is
well.
another. I think that this is another trivial argument. Would you say that it's wrong to play the piano because you're unnaturally using your fingers to hit the keys that could lead to long-term health effects? Such
No,
as,
because
like,
it's not contrary to its nature.
Oh wait, but it leads to long-term negative health effects. And some people, it could lead to like their hands seizing up, or I forget the particular word, but it essentially leads to very like bad long-term health effects like within the hands. So like
Yeah.
given your logic, why wouldn't you say that it's wrong to play the piano? Granted, right, that it's not in the nature, right? That was a trivial assumption, and it leads to negative long-term health effects.
No, it's
such as
obvious
arthritis.
because I mean, what do we call the penis? It's a sexual organ. It's for the purpose of sex. Fingers are a little bit different. Lips are a little bit different. They have all kinds of different potential utilities and things like that. But the sexual organ is directed towards the sexual function. I mean, why do we? The
I don't
reason
think
the reason the penis is shaped like it is,
Descriptively.
the reason. Okay, now you're going to interrupt me. The reason that it's shaped like it is and positioned where it is and all those things, it's for one purpose. The reason that it, I mean, not to get graphic, but the reason it does all the things it does is for the.
I mean, I just want to point out that the prostate is in the ass. If we want to be technical about things being in certain places for a reason, there are many men who find their prostate being stimulated to be very stimulating. Again, I'm not advocating for anything. I don't really care. But it's just a fact of nature You literally, bro, you literally stimulate the prostate in the ass. That's how you stimulate it. That's like saying the G spot is not in the pussy. Like, how you stimulate it is in the. It's just like, this is. I know we have groypers here, but like, guys, this is just reality.
For the purpose of insemination.
No, I actually legitimately don't care if people are gay. That has always been my position. Don't care. If you want to deny reality, if you want to deny biology, if you want to deny how these things work, that's your business. But we're not doing that here.
It's not for the purpose of inseminating a person's colon or rectum.
There's so much groyper cope in the chat
has literally
right now.
one purpose.
So
okay,
much
a butthole
fucking
has
cope.
one purpose, which is to excrete waste, not for
So do you
other
mind if I
things
give
like
you my
that.
stance on this? I'm gonna give you my stance.
Yeah, let's hear. Well,
Bro, I'm gonna be blunt. I'm gonna be real blunt. I'm gonna be real blunt. If this is the extent of your sexual knowledge, I would be shocked if you've ever given a woman an orgasm. And that's really sad for you. It's really sad that it is more important for you to deny basic facts than it is to have a fulfilling sex life. I genuinely feel sorry for every woman you ever had sex with, every woman you ever will have sex with, the woman you marry. I genuinely feel bad for them because you're absolutely not making them come. 100% not making them come. Ever. They probably have a vibrator or something. They probably don't tell you about it, but it ain't coming from you.
it is a debate, so I wouldn't mind that at all, actually.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think that we could prescriptively define the function of like any part of our body or really like anything for that matter. We could only descriptively define them. Like I could give you a good analogy here. Like if you went to like a hardware store like Lowe's or Home Depot, right, and you went to buy a hammer, and the instruction manual on this hammer tells you that it's supposed to put nails into wood. Well, I mean, all of a sudden you are misusing the hammer if you're not putting nails in the wood. But if you go into the middle of the forest and you find a rock in the shape of a hammer identical to the one in Lowe's, you're not doing anything wrong regardless of how you use it because there wasn't any intention behind.
Yes, if every single woman that you've ever been with says that you're giving them multiple orgasms, they are absolutely 100% lying. That's not happening, bro. That's such bullshit.
Behind its design. And that's exactly what I would say about the human anatomy, right? There was no conscious intention behind the design of the human anatomy. I think that we could descriptively define how we use parts of our body. And I think you kind of implicitly conceded to this earlier when you told me that it's in my nature to use my hands to play the piano or to use my mouth to kiss my girlfriend. Those are not intentful, prescriptive claims that you're making about the function or use of my hands. These are going to be descriptions about how we can use my hands, about how we can use my lips. And that's exactly how I'd reference, right, these sexual organs. Okay. And the only way for you to justify your claim that there is intention behind the design of the human anatomy, to justify that there's incorrect uses of it, would be God. And of course, I dispute the existence of God. You couldn't prove that God exists. If we had 30 minutes, I could be able to give you an argument to show that it's logically impossible for the Christian God to exist. So I think what it's best for you to do right now is to either concede your position or just say it outright. You think being gay is wrong because God said so. You think being gay is wrong because you truly believe that God built our bodies to function in a particular manner that is adjacent to the use that you like to describe to our fingers or to our mouths. Say it out loud.
Well, like I said, if you were listening at the very beginning of my opening statement, I said we are created and we are ensouled, and our souls and our bodies have to be treated with dignity. And yes, you're 100% right. I mean, if you believe that, if you're a nihilist or a materialist and you believe there's only matter and everything is subjective, then yeah, like there's no problem with putting this in there and that over there. But if you think that we are created, and if you think there is such a thing as a natural law and a moral law, then we would have to abide by what we can assume are these functions, or what we are told are the functions by revelation. If you believe in a religion with revelation, then it's revealed. If you believe in a religion which is philosophical, then you have to deduce it rationally. But when you look at something like the anus, E. Michael Jones has a famous quote about this: the anus is not a sex organ. It's obviously not. It's there for one purpose. And I think, we all sort of know like, yeah, of course you can do these things. No one's arguing that you can't. Of course you can. It can be done. You're capable of doing it. The question is, should we do these things? And if these things are contrary to their nature, and there's evidence that this is the case because they result in problems, then we probably shouldn't. And you don't even necessarily need to believe in God to understand that. I think that, hang on, I'm not totally finished. I think that even if you don't believe in God, I think there are a lot of people that actually don't believe in God that still find it to be a kind of degenerative, indulgent, undignified practice. I'm not finished yet. You're very disrespectful in that way. I'm so respectful, and you're being very rude the way you're chirping with these little interruptions. And the thing is, I mean, let's imagine what it is. When they're walking down the street waving that flag, it represents a filthy, violent act where you're evacuating fecal matter out of your bowels to make room for sex, and it's never fully gone. And this is why they get AIDS, because you're putting a sexual organ where the shit is. And that's just something that, is objectively gross, I think, for very good reasons, which is a pretty good heuristic that it's also immoral. And so, people that are same-sex attracted, people that are tolerant of same-sex attracted persons, and people that are not, I think should all be able to recognize that sodomy is something that there's something deeply wrong with it, and it should be avoided, even if you're not religious.
Let's do closing statements, 1 minute each. I'll give 1 minute to Dean and then 1 minute to Nick. We'll go on to the next topic.
Great. Thank you so much. So Nick Fuentes made two arguments. The first argument that Nick Fuentes made was that I think it's gross, therefore it's wrong. In Nick's closing statement, what he will not do is give me the logical distinction with him saying gay gross, therefore wrong, and a white supremacist saying being black gross, therefore wrong. There's no logical distinction between the way in which those two beliefs were formed, and he won't be able to give it to me. The second argument that Nick made here was that we can deduce that it's not within the teleological, the teleological use of these sex organs to use them in such a manner where the penis is inserted into the anus, because doing so can reap long-term negative outcomes. Okay, right? He will not be able to give me the difference between saying this is why gay sex is wrong and me saying, well, it's wrong to play the piano because when you use your hands to do so, this could reap negative long-term outcomes such as arthritis. So those two arguments alone show us all that Nick's logic here is unreliable because of the absurdities in which they yield. Right? If the same logic that you're using to justify that being gay is wrong could lead a white supremacist to the conclusion that being black is wrong, and lead a dumbass to the conclusion that playing the piano is wrong, maybe your logic isn't that sound. And I think that's going to be my closing statement. If Nick Fuentes was honest with us here, folks, he would tell us that being gay is wrong because he's just a little bit prejudiced, don't you think?
Okay, that was a bit over. Nick, I'll give you 90 seconds to close here.
All right, yeah. I don't know why we got to do the debate club stuff. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what Nick Fuentes is going to try and... it's like, this is a very we're on Aiden Ross, okay, bitch? This is Aiden Ross live. There's no rules here, okay, other than the time limit. My closing statement is very simple. It's just like how I started. If you believe, and I tend to think that every decent person does, even if you're not Christian or necessarily religious, if you believe that we are more than just matter, meaning that we have souls, meaning that there is something deeper, there's a ghost in the machine that is a true source of identity. If you believe that the universe is created and we're created, then you believe that moral conduct is not just about avoiding harm or hurting people. There's also a way to conduct your moral life independently, and it's how you treat yourself, it's your actions. We all understand there's an idea of discipline, cleanliness, all those kinds of things. And the idea of sodomy, which people should think of when they think of homosexuality, I think according to any decent person in any culture, is something that is violent, filthy, and those things tend to be wrong. It's contrary to the nature of sex, what we know the anus and the penis to be for, or for lesbians for that matter, it's contrary to the purpose of those things. And I would say that on top of all that, you have evidence that this is the case because there's such a low incidence of it. It's a very small percentage of the population, has a very high coincidence with mental illness, and there's a very common family pattern that produces that behavior, that disposition. And I think that tells us
10 seconds, Nick. 10 seconds.
Okay. It's a very particular kind of behavior that's a response to things. It should be avoided. I think any decent person realizes that.
Hey, Aiden.
Yeah.
No more on the subject, Dean.
Hold on. What is Dean want to... Yes, Dean.
Well, I mean, I would like to propose giving Nick another 60 seconds to respond to my closing statement. As I pointed out in my closing
Oh my
statement, he
God.
wouldn't respond to the arguments I gave, and he still didn't. So I
This
just wanted
kid
to
is
see
so
if Nick wanted more
annoying.
time to do that. If not, we can move on, but he probably won't.
Can we give him 60 more seconds to actually respond? Okay. Can we do the next topic now?
we're
Sorry, I
gonna
didn't
move on.
respond to your stupid syllogism about white supremacy and the Holocaust and January 6th or whatever.
That's a damning non-answer. Let's go to the next topic.
Yeah, for real.
Okay, we're going to go to the next one. And then, Dean, you agreed to do immigration. We'll circle back to Kamala Trump after the last agreed upon subject. Is that cool?
Yeah, depending on what time it is after we get our 4 out of the way. I kind of like carved out like an hour and a half, but if we want to go out to immigration at the end, I might have some time. I just have to see what's going on.
The reason why we have to do a fifth topic that we both agree on, guys, is because a lot of the audience, is enjoying this and they're deep in on this. And I think it's almost, you guys are almost kind of tied right now. They're a lot of them are agreeing about a tie. So maybe a fifth. We'll see. Let's get to the fourth topic, though.
Well, how about this? Because we've been going about 30 minutes each subject. So for brevity's sake, why don't we do 20 minutes on the last subject and 20 minutes on immigration?
I like the hat
to keep-
change.
What's the last subject?
Are men superior to women?
Could we give that 130?
Okay, but if you agree to do immigration,
If I agree to do immigration, I'll give that 30. I feel like there's people out there that could represent immigration better than I can.
Because
Like,
you're going to lose on that one.
He didn't prep for it.
I don't know like what your expertise is. I'm guessing you like to yap about immigration. Like I don't like host immigration debates.
specialist.
I'm not always talking about
I
that.
round him up myself.
Dean, do you have a fifth topic that you might want to cover, touch base on? Just something for the end. It doesn't have to be that long either, like maybe 15 minutes.
Yeah, no, we could debate immigration. Let's just do it.
All right. Okay. All right. So the next topic is
Nick's sitting over there with a smile on his face. Sorry.
I'm having fun.
Yeah, we'll
You're a
start
good
with our
debate
men.
partner. You're good. It's not personal. So I just want you to know.
Are men more superior?
no, just superior. Are men
Okay.
superior to women? We'll start with Nick. I'll give you 3 minutes and then 3 minutes to Dean.
Yeah, men are awesome. Women suck and they're dumb. And no, I'm kidding. Yeah, the thing is, though, men
So
obviously were made to lead. And I do think that women should have a secondary role in society. I think that's absolutely true. I do believe in a fundamental equality between man and woman. You know, the Bible says that God created them man and woman. So we're both created with dignity and should be respected. And there's an equality before God that we both have. But we were created with two distinct and different natures. They are two essential. Maleness and femaleness are essential about a person. They're essential to the soul. They're essential to the body. They come with a function. They come with a particular anatomy. They come with a brain chemistry. And as such, those things have social roles. The idea that these clearly two distinct categories, two essential types of people would be treated precisely the same or exactly the same in society, it belies the fact that they have two different natures. And I think it's obvious that men are celestial, they're individualists, they're rationalists, they're leaders, they're risk takers. They should be working, fighting, running society. Women are terrestrial, they're nurturers, they're caregivers. They should be the mothers. I don't think that they should be necessarily precluded from working. But I think that they should be encouraged first and foremost to be mothers for their benefit and for the benefit of society as a whole. And that's kind of the gist of my position.
Okay, so I have an opening statement. I guess I'll use it up. My position's pretty clear. No, one human being does not have more intrinsic moral value than another human being. I don't think that we could take this qualification of your gender identity or what's in between your legs and abstract that out to this norm of who's going to be better at leading. I'd say the qualifications of determining who's better at leading, the qualifications of determining, half the shit that he named off over here is not going to be, right, what's in between your legs or your gender identity, but rather other various traits. But I guess just to make this quick, we could kind of cut to the chase here. Why do you think men are better at leading than women? I would appreciate specifics. You kind of pointed out
Because
like
they're
different
physically
natures,
stronger.
different biological differences, neuroanatomy, etc. I want you to name the specifics. Maybe I could ask you a question here.
Now, to be really clear, my position is actually like it's dependent on the type of leadership that you're talking about because different types of situations like require different types of leadership. But like in general, men are physically stronger than women. In general, throughout history, it has been the job of men to be in the military. Like, it has been like kings were leaders of the military. I mean, you can say, like, in the work, like, if you want to talk about something boring, like in the workplace today, are there situations in which women might make better managers than men? Yes, there are some situations in the workplace today that it would be better off having a female manager than a male manager. Like, I think that, like, a woman is probably better at running a daycare. A woman is probably better at, I don't know, jobs that require more soft skills. Like running a Starbucks or running like a restaurant or things like that. I think that women can generally be better at that because I think it requires much more soft skills. But if we're talking, like, again, we're talking about, like, generally speaking, who should be running the country? Usually, probably men, if we're honest about it. And that's not to say that men are more valuable than women. It's to say that men and women have different skill sets.
What are the specific biological differences between men and women that make men better at leading than women?
Smarter, stronger, all of the above. No, I mean, in actuality,
Be specific.
in actuality,
are those your two?
What?
Are those your two qualifiers?
No, I'm being a little bit funny.
Well, be honest with me here.
The reason why they're better leaders, well, one, I think they're really only qualified to be leaders because they are physically stronger. And, you know, this is one of the reasons why we have a feminist society. It's because we live in a world where we have technology.
She should absolutely.
In the old days, when there was fighting, it was very physical and it was very direct. It was hand-to-hand combat, and the only people that could do it were men. As such, the militaries that were raised up were comprised of men. The people that fought and enforced sovereignty, law, borders, all those things were men. Necessarily, then, they're the decision makers. And so, you know, the idea that it has something to do with what's between your legs, well, it has to do with what's between your legs and the fact that you have testosterone. You're physically stronger.
And by the way,
because
like, in a sane world where people just weren't trying to, like, punk each other on the internet all the time, there would be an acknowledgement that masculine traits and feminine traits are a balance to each other and they need to work together. That is the whole point of this. This is not to say that, like, men are functionally more valuable than women, because provably they're not. Without women, society would cease to exist. So you can't say that men are, like, just, like, objectively more valuable than women, because without women, both men and women would die out of society because women are the ones that have the kids. So it's like, you have to look at this like, there are masculine things and there are feminine things, and people are a perfect balance of masculine and feminine energy. And both of these things are valuable, but if you have people with feminine skill sets doing masculine jobs, that's not going to work. Just like if you have people with masculine, like, skill sets doing feminine jobs, that's not going to work either. You have to find the balance and the integration of the two and acknowledge the innate value of all human beings.
You have testosterone, it means you're more aggressive. It means you're a bigger risk taker. Those are two things that are important. For a person to be a leader, they need to be able to stand against the crowd. And that means a risk taker. It means you need to be disagreeable. It involves a certain amount of aggression and a competitiveness that women simply lack. We all know that women are very agreeable, passive. Not all of them, but generally speaking, they are. They're peacemakers. Definitely. They're more introspective. They're more emotional, less decisive. And all of that makes them worse as leaders. Now, there can be women that are good in particular leadership roles in certain circumstances, and individual women might. But as a general rule, because of their nature, they don't make good leaders.
Okay, thank you so much for your response there. Let's talk about it all. One of the reasons that you gave me that men are better at leading than women is physical strength. That is a totally and completely mute point. You would not be able to name me one social category in the world today where leadership is determined on purely physical strength. I also bet that you would not be willing to vote for a 15-year-old on steroids that can bench press 600 pounds over Donald Trump just because he's physically stronger. Another point that you brought up is that women are more emotional than men. I'd actually say that's false. 72% of people who commit suicide are men. 85% of people that abuse hard drugs as a substance abuse hard drugs as an emotional reaction to like particular.
No. You're lying to yourself because you want to feel superior. This is not true. This is just provably not true. We hinge into reality, bro. We do not do your bullshit red pill talking points here.
External stimuli are men. We see that 95% of violent crimes are committed by men. We see that men are much more likely to start wars, to start genocides. We see that men are much more likely to engage in irrational risk-adverse activities, such as drunk driving, reckless driving, or gambling. Meanwhile, we see women have a higher IQ and EQ on average. Women outperform men in the context of school, going to it more, getting better grades and better degrees. And we see that women could actually deal with stress better than men. And that's one of those biological predispositions that you were talking about. Women have thicker dendrites in their neuroanatomy compared to men, for the reason being that evolution has designed women to deal with childbirth, okay? Right? And that made them deal with stress better as well. That's why we see that female surgeons outcompete male surgeons. The JMA and the AMA did a massive study on 1.7 million patients on 6 continents and evaluated that if you're operated on by a male compared to a female, that you're more likely to die as a result of your surgery and you're more likely to experience postoperative outcomes. So just a quick recap. Physical strength doesn't mean shit. I have bigger biceps than you. I bet you think you're a better leader. Emotional maturity. Women are more emotionally mature than men. Then about intelligence and all the other shit you brought up. We could get into that, but I'll let you respond to the points that I brought up so far.
Yeah. So you said it was risk averse to gamble and drunk drive. It's the opposite. You said men are more willing to drunk drive and gamble. Those are risk-taking activities, and risk-taking is fundamental in leadership.
Yeah,
that's why, yeah, well, fair enough. And that's why, you know, the richest people in the world are all men, because the entrepreneurs are men, because an entrepreneur.
So you're one of these bitches that subjugates yourself to men because you want men to like you. Is that what you're doing? You're like, all women suck and all men are the best, and this is what I have to say on the internet to get men to like me. So either you're a low IQ retard, which means you're really not cut out for my audience at all, or you like, or like this is just pandering because you can't get men to like you in any. Like, are you ugly? Is that it? Are you ugly? Like, is this like a pick-me thing? Like, I just think that the only thing that women can do is to be mothers, and men can do all the other jobs that women can't do. Again, we hinge into reality here, sweetheart. I'm not gonna play your classic pick-me red pill fucking game. I'm just not gonna do it. The way we are set up as human beings is a blend of masculine and feminine. The world only works when men and women put aside their fucking bullshit and acknowledge the innate value that the other has. It is about integration. It is not about women can only raise children and can only be in the home and men do everything better. That is not a balance. That is fucking slavery. That is not acknowledging the innate qualities and innate value that the feminine brings.
Is a risk taker. And, you know, one man's gambling is another man's entrepreneurship. One man's drunk driving is another man's self-destructive, obsessive, maniacal quest for, you know, building the best company or being the president or anything like that. It's absolutely essential. With regard to higher IQ and EQ, it is true that on average women have a higher IQ, but it's also true that the distribution is different. There's more geniuses among men. I mean, the curve if you will, is flatter. So there's more men that are on the left side of the
thanks,
curve. There's
ladies.
more men on the right side of the curve. Although the average for women is
appreciate you.
higher, they don't have those outliers and those extremes. That's why you don't see a lot of female geniuses. And that's just true. I mean, earlier today in preparation for the debate, I asked ChatGPT, I said, name some female geniuses. They got to like 3 before they had to name a feminist. They did like Marie Curie, some ancient Neoplatonist no one ever heard of. And then it was like all the like first.
All right. Let me be clear, Red Pillars. Let me be clear. I am not pandering to your bullshit. I don't want to see it in my chat. I find it to be intellectually dishonest at best. I find this whole discussion to be fucking ridiculous. I don't want to deal with it. It's already been a long stream. So if you insist on continuing to put this, women can only be mothers and that's all that they can do. And that is the most important thing that they can, that's all that they can do. And I'm not going to acknowledge anything else other than women. Like, fuck you. Go fuck yourselves. Honestly. Because you're worse than the fucking men. You're literally worse than the fucking men. You literally create more problems than the fucking men do when you go down this route.
Second wave feminists. There's no female geniuses. There's very few female billionaires that didn't get their wealth outside of divorce. There's very few female heads of state. People say that's oppression, it's misogyny. And we all know it's because they're not risk takers, they're not tough. With regard to they handle stress better, yeah.
The red pill females are so much worse than the red pill males. Like, so much worse. They're always, the red pill females are just as, like, they're insufferable cunts. Red pill females are worse than feminists. Red pill females are worse than TERFs. They are insufferable, self-righteous cunts. I have no patience at all.
Maybe certain kinds of stress, but I think we all know women. And I think we all know that when women are put in stressful situations, they crumble.
My God.
They cry, they get upset, they freak out, they call their boyfriend, they call their father. Hang on. I let you go on. And you said that ridiculous stuff. Hang on, let me finish. I'll wrap up, but I let you finish and I let you say that women handle stress better. That's insane. Okay. And with regard to physical strength, look, I said today, physical strength is not a qualifier because of techniques, because we have missiles, we have tanks and things like that. But the point is, it used to be the case that would qualify you to lead.
Goodbye.
Is that you would go out there and be doing the fighting and all of that.
Goodbye.
And that is still true. It's not necessarily true in the United States, but it is still true in other countries. In countries like Israel, for example, or Iran, their presidents and their ministers are frequently military leaders that are actually having to be in the tanks and in the battlefield. And, it's hard to be in the battlefield when you get your period. It's hard to be in the battlefield if you're pregnant or something like that. Men don't get pregnant. Men don't get their period. Men are physically stronger. Men have more endurance. That's why, by the way, it's not just that they're stronger, they're faster, they're all the above. That's why women don't compete with men in sports. That's why men make better soldiers. True. And so, it kind of does matter that if there's a war, men are going to be the ones fighting and dying it, and that's why they're leading. And there's something deeply related to their biology there as well. But go ahead, since you want to interrupt me already.
Yeah, let's do something here. I've kind of felt this way like the entire time that we've been having the discussion. I feel like we both like to talk a lot. I think that that's been evidently clear. We just kind of go at each other with like these 2 to 3 minute responses. Can I ask something from you?
What is it? Depends on what it is.
I kind of want to break down each point you've brought up and demonstrate to you why it's flawed instead of just giving these long-winded responses.
You want to do a fact check?
And I want to do that point by point with our last 5 minutes. The first point about physical strength. Who would you rather vote for? A 15-year-old that can bench press 1,000 pounds or Donald Trump?
But that's not what I'm not saying that the most physically strong person should be the king. I'm saying that
what are you saying?
as a category, women are not soldiers. They're not tasked with defending the country. And that is effectively what the king or the president is supposed to do, is defend the realm. So
Didn't Trump dodge the draft 5 times?
Oh my. Okay, so are we just going to do the resistance liberal thing now? I said the United States, techniques notwithstanding. Are you capable of understanding like a concept?
No,
can
he's not.
non-soldiers defend the country?
President Bone Spurs. We're talking about whether women should be leaders if they
I
can't
know, and
physically
you're
defend the
giving-
borders.
Okay, so you'd say the weaker you are physically speaking, the worse you are at leading.
No.
So then
I
what the
just
fuck is
said-
your argument?
Yeah, it's like you're not even listening. I said as a category, because sex is
A
essential.
category that's not going to be indicative of leadership ability when the question is,
It-
why are men
Okay.
better at leading than women?
Come on.
Why do you
Right.
name a category where we see these general biological distinctions between men and women if it's not indicative of men being better at leading than women? I
Because-
asked you to name the specific biological differences between men and women that make
Which I
men
did.
better at leading than women. You
Which I
said
did.
strength was one of them, and now you're saying it's not. You're saying that emotional intelligence was
Okay.
one of them, then you conceded that women are more emotionally intelligent than men.
Didn't hear
point
the
that you,
other part.
Another point that you brought up was intelligence, specifically IQ, with like the highest geniuses of the men being smarter than that of the women. I'd say there's going to be some social, like some social aspects thrown in there. I mean, if you look at like the average IQ of an Arab individual compared to a white individual at home here in the U.S., the white individual has a higher IQ. But then if you go to an Arab-dominated country in the Middle East, you'll see that the Arab individual has a higher IQ. What this means is that socialization, access to opportunity, and resources can play in, right, to like your deviated IQ. So of course we'd see more men having higher IQs at the end of the spectrum compared to women, just because they have more opportunity, resources, and access to education.
Oh, it's because of
in general.
misogyny. It's misogyny, right? Women are dumb because of misogyny.
Patriarchy.
Well,
They don't
actually,
have
I'd say
access
that
to
not being in the
resources.
top 10%
Let me
of
ask you.
IQs
Let me ask
doesn't
you a
make you
question.
fucking dumb.
You asked me
And then
questions. Let me
secondly,
ask you
I
a
give
question.
reason to believe that
I want to
that's
ask you
true.
a question about leadership. What do you think are good leadership traits? Can you give me some examples of what like good leadership traits are?
That's a great question, and I think I'll give you a great answer. We could talk about a good, morally virtuous character. We could talk about ability to get along with other people, bring people together, and get them to follow you. Another thing that I'd say, a good leader isn't just someone who could bring people together, but a good leader is also someone that can lead those people into a positive direction. The reason that leadership exists in the first place is because when you take a large group of people and you set them on their own paths, they're not going to get shit done. Thereby, you choose one of that large group of people to lead them all in what? A positive direction. So you're looking for someone with a good character. You're looking for someone that could bring people together. You're probably going to be looking for someone that's pretty damn competent as well, and someone that could like achieve like the highest level of eudaimonia for the group of people that they're leading. I'm sure there's other attributes that we could assign to leadership here, but there's going to be a general sense.
Bro, pull that. Look, see, this is
Wait,
where
Nick,
you're
this is where
wrong.
you're wrong.
What
Nick,
is
let's do
going-
do you need to respond, or let's do a 1 minute closing statement here?
Can I just respond and then we can do closing
Sure.
statements?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Why can't
So
they
just
fix
to
the
respond to
echo?
that, I mean, and this is kind of the whole essence of the debate is
Didn't
you
Nico coming off last time? Funny. Go ahead.
you fundamentally misunderstand human nature and you know nothing about leadership. You say it's about bringing everyone together to move in a positive direction. It's like this is a problem with Gen Z. It's like this kind of
You fucking
kindergartner.
nihilist.
Hang on, can I finish, please? I didn't interrupt all that
Yes.
nonsense. It's just sort of like, hey, everybody, let's all hold hands and let's just create, like everyone's being nice to each other. The world is a mess, okay? The world is a knife fight. On the global scale, when you're talking about leaders and armies, it's a knife fight for existence. When you're talking about companies, it's a knife fight for existence. We're talking about anything. Human competition, it's practically homicidal between people, and anyone that's serious about anything will tell you that. Anyone that's obsessed, anyone that's ambitious, anyone who is ruling, who is actually the leaders in society who earn their role there, they'll tell you the same thing. It's cutthroat. And yeah, like there are some abilities, like you said, like, yeah, you need to inspire people, things like that. But more than that, you need a willingness to do what it takes. You need an ambition. You need to take risks. You need to be willing to make decisions and stand by them. These are all qualities that purely because of gender and hormones, because of their biological role, women don't have those things. Because women have to have a baby grow inside of them for 9 months and then hear it scream and cry and take care of it and feed them from their breast and have like basically a dependent. They're just not made for that kind of competition. They have a completely care-based ethics. They're totally dependent. Men who are individuals, risk takers, aggressive, men who can exist independently of women when it's really not so the other way around. They alone have the ability to do what it takes to lead. And that's why even with all the DEI in the world, you're still going to have men running everything. The private sector, the public sector, the military, because men are the ones that can lead. And thus, they do. It's only through ideologically motivated policies from human resources departments that you get women doing fucking anything other than like creating schedules and being nurses and being fucking teachers and stuff like that.
I just don't care
That's just reality. Everyone knows it. And you could give me 100 studies. That's human nature.
Dean, respond, and then we'll go to closing statements.
Yeah, it's funny
I mean,
you're saying that you can't get.
The reality is, and listen, I've done thousands of psychological assessments in organizations. I've done leadership assessments. I've done managerial assessments. I've done general psychological assessments. I've done all, like, I literally have a data set of thousands of these assessments that I've done. Here is the reality. There are naturally masculine leadership traits and there are naturally feminine leadership traits. The naturally masculine leadership traits are going to be like a dominant personality, someone who's able to have a big picture vision, someone who's being detail-oriented, task-oriented. They're creating like plans and things like that. More feminine leadership traits are going to be like the people who are going out and getting everyone excited and having charisma and all that stuff. The people who are bringing people together in meetings, finding compromises, making sure that problems are kind of head off before they become real problems. Because sometimes when you have these men with these highly masculine leadership traits, what they do is they don't actually think about the consequences of their actions. They just move forward. But when you have people that balance that with naturally feminine leadership traits, they go, hey, before you pull the trigger on that, have you thought about reason X, Y, B, and Z, why this might be a problem? Those two things are supposed to come together. It is when you have the marriage of the naturally masculine leadership traits and the naturally feminine leadership traits that you have highly effective leaders, because it is a balancing of the two. Now, for my money, there is one sector of naturally masculine leadership traits that does tend to be more important when it comes to CEOs, high-level positions, and that is being a dominant style in terms of your communication. But the people who have the dominant style, it is slightly more male than female, the difference is really slight. So if you're looking at people who have a predominantly masculine style in their communication, which again is one of the things that people think of when it comes to being a leader, it is true that there are statistically more men who have that style than women, but the difference is not as much as you might think. So it's kind of like 60-40 sort of thing. There's a difference and we should acknowledge the difference. Women are more inclined to other types of communication styles, but the difference is not a statistically large difference. I'm one of the women that have the naturally dominant leadership style. Like, that is my communication style. That's why I piss so many people off, because I am very, very, very high dominance on that particular thing. I've had to learn to do other things like bringing people together and giving consensus and making people happy and be like, I can do those things. I don't like to do those things, but I can do those things. And I think it's the same with anyone. It's like when you look at the difference, and again, I'm talking about a statistical difference over thousands of these psychological assessments that I've administered. You have slightly more men having dominant styles of leadership that become more effective and more relevant when you're getting into higher level positions, but it's not a statistically like significant thing. It's more slight than people might think. So this all goes back to the point I made earlier, which is that people should be seeking to balance each other. That if you have people who are more dominant in their leadership style, quite frankly, it does benefit them to learn how to do more feminine things. If you have people that are more feminine in their leadership style, those people can make great leaders. But if they don't learn how to be more masculine in some of their communications, it's probably not going to work. This is about a balance. It's about knowing when to use what tools in your toolbox in what situations. That's what it is. That's my opinion.
Get women to do anything. If a woman didn't do something, you want to be sitting here having this debate with me right now. But I would just wanted to respond to that. You're saying men are so much better at leading than women, and I hate women because I haven't touched one since conception. Sorry, that's not what you said. You actually said, because they're not aggressive.
I touch them. I just don't. I don't have sex with them. They're not my wife.
I don't know about that. Anyways,
Nick,
you're a rapist.
Nick did give me a hug at AFPAC. I will say, no, we did not have sex. Obviously, I'm not married to Nick, and I'm not a young, hot Italian Catholic virgin. But he does touch women because he gave me a hug at AFPAC. Confirmed.
I'm not gonna call
Orange
you
man
a rapist
bad.
without evidence.
Yeah,
Orange you
anyways,
glad.
So
Go ahead,
anyway,
sorry.
It was pretty great.
no, you're good, man.
I was
What I was
pretty
gonna
satisfied.
ask, well, if like ambition, risk taking, and aggressiveness is what makes you a good leader, Hitler was an incredibly ambitious, aggressive risk taker. Given your qualifications, would you thereby say that Hitler is a good leader?
It's indisputable he is. Indisputably. You could even say he's evil. He made Germany great again. Even
I
if
have
you
a
believe he's
question.
evil.
Who would you rather have run our country right now, your wife or Hitler?
Hitler.
Hitler! Of course. Of course. I don't have a wife, but if I did, she would not be fit to run the country. I could tell you that much. She can run the kitchen. She can't run the lawnmower. I'll put it that way. And I think anyone would. One's in the chat if you'd rather Hitler over your wife. Two's if you prefer your wife. We'll let the fucking numbers do the talking over here. I don't think I'm alone in that.
Okay, let's do 1 minute closing. Let's do 1 minute Nick and then 1 minute Dean. Nick, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so my closing statement is that, look, it's human nature. I am not an empiricist. I don't think we need to consult the studies. I think we know our nature. I think God created a man and a woman. We're created with two different reproductive faculties. We're created with, as a result, different anatomies, different natures, different dispositions. We're made with complementarity. Men and women are not only made
he's saying
differently,
the
they're
same
made to
thing I
complement
said.
each other, which doesn't mean that they're necessarily
Nick
opposites,
understands.
but it does mean that there's like reciprocal differences.
He understands.
As a result of these essential immutable differences,
surprised
we
about
should
that.
treat men and women differently, and we do.
Yes.
That's why we have things like chivalry. That's why men don't hit women. That's why men and women don't compete in the same sports. And, a lot of people understand that, but then they don't understand why we would say we don't want a woman president, or why we wouldn't want to send women into combat, or why we think that men aren't badass bikers and whatever in the same way that men are. But it all proceeds from the same essential complementary natures that the two sexes were given by God. To pretend
not Nick.
otherwise is to ignore our eyes and our experience and what we know about ourselves and the people in our lives.
Dean, 1 minute.
Yeah, first of all, you said that's why men don't hit women. Men do hit women. It sucks.
Women
Second
hit
of all,
men. Hang on.
let's talk about why
Hang
men.
on. Women hit men too. I like you're just gonna throw that out there. Yeah, men hit women. Yeah, they do. Men hit women. Women hit men too. Like, there are all sorts of studies about women who are physically abusive of men. But women never, well, I shouldn't say never, almost never experience the consequences of being physically abusive of men. And oftentimes, though not always, but many times, when a man is physically abusive of a woman, it's because the woman fucking hit him first. Like, look at the statistics of domestic violence among lesbians. If there's any domestic violence among lesbians at all, guess what? It's a woman who started it. And men never report women being physically abusive because it makes them feel less masculine. Men aren't allowed to go to, like, abuse shelters or things like that. They don't have those resources.
Are not better at leading than women. Every single point that Nick Fuentes has been reduced to him telling us all that Hitler is a better candidate for America's president today compared to Kamala Harris or his very own wife.
Yes.
I don't give a shit about the 12 or 13-year-old little boys spamming 1 and 8-inch chat. Anyone with half of a fucking brain cell can tell that this logic is not immutable, and it leads you to being a
He's so
fucking incel
triggered.
RNC droid repeating the same alternative media talking points that you got from Andrew fucking Tate. Okay, right? The facts of the matter are, this guy said men are better at leading than women because they're physically stronger. Physical strength is not indicative of being better at leading. Go talk to the biggest guy in your gym and see who would be better at leading. This guy also brought up levels of emotion. Men are more emotional than women. We all know this. That's why they commit vast majority of violent crimes. That's why they commit vast majority of suicides. That's why they abuse hard drugs more, right? That's why they commit DV, kidnapping, etc. more. Another point that he brought up was intelligence. Women have a higher IQ on average. Let's face the facts, folks. There's no evidence to believe that men are better at leading than women, and I suggest you treat the women in your life damn well and don't tell them to stay in the kitchen, or you're not going to get a wife, just
That's
like
time,
28-year-old Nick Fuentes over here hasn't been able to get a girlfriend since he was born. That's why, folks.
Nick
That's
could
why
absolutely
you're
get
an
a girlfriend
incel.
if he wanted to.
But we're going to go ahead and move on now.
Okay, let's go back to Trump Camel in the beginning.
There is no reality in which Nick Fuentes couldn't get a girlfriend. I'm sorry. Nick could absolutely get a girlfriend if he wanted a girlfriend, and he will be able to find a woman to marry him when he decides he wants to get married. And quite frankly, it is really, really smart of Nick to remain a virgin until he's married, because you know that if Nick had sex before he was married, some bitch would use that against him to fuck him over.
We'll say who's stronger on immigration, Trump or Kamala?
Oh, this one's so incredibly easy.
We'll give you let's do 2 minutes. We'll keep this one a little short, a 2-minute intro.
Yeah, sure. Kamala Harris is stronger on immigration. Well, this one's just evidently clear. Donald Trump is pro-open borders. Huh. Why is Donald Trump pro-open borders? Because he torpedoed a bipartisan border bill in the House and the Senate 2 years ago, drafted by a Trump-endorsed Republican by the name of Langford. Okay?
2 years ago? How did Trump torpedo anything 2 years ago? Trump was playing golf at Mar-a-Lago 2 years ago.
Trump is pro-open borders right now because he knows it's going to increase his chance of winning re-election. Another thought here, if I was a conservative and I cared about immigration, Donald Trump wouldn't be my guy. He essentially passed no policy that effectively mitigated increasing numbers of border crossings and entries into our country under his term. The wall didn't do shit. The Remain in Mexico policy didn't do shit. If you look at the graph behind Donald Trump at the rally that he got shot at, he claimed that his clampdown on the southern border started with Title 42 and COVID. The big public health emergency that Nick Fuentes over here probably thinks was a common cold is the only reason that we had as low of border entries under Trump's administration as we did. Kamala Harris, on the other hand, right, she wants to send more funding to the courts on the borders to expedite the asylum-seeking processes to reduce undocumented migration in our country. She's the only candidate in the race to prosecute transatlantic gangs. But the moral of the story, the one point that I want to stick for Nick Fuentes over here to respond to, is that Donald Trump is pro-open border because he torpedoed good border policy in the House and the Senate 2 years ago because he wanted the crisis to continue and make the Democrats look bad.
Nick, you got 2 minutes.
All right. Yeah, that's just like obviously out of touch with reality. I knew he would go there, and that's why I want to talk about immigration. I mean, you could make that case if history started in the year 2024, that Trump torpedoed the border bill and that's why the border is bad. But of course, time didn't start in 2024. It started with immigration a long time ago. Trump had a number of executive orders that curbed illegal border crossings. It wasn't just the migrant protection protocols. It was a number of others meant to close loopholes with catch and release, and so they could return immigrants to third-party countries. It wasn't just Title 42. And the Biden administration undid all of them, literally on the first day. Trump built a border wall. You say it did nothing. Department of Homeland Security says actually it reduced crossings, reduced drug trafficking over the border, reduced human smuggling over the border. That's all true. He built 386 miles of physical infrastructure, and he did it, by the way, after Congress refused to give him the money, after the Supreme Court, or rather a federal judge, tried to hold it up in the court system. Finally, by the end of his term, he was able to get the money from the DOD to build a border wall. Biden stopped building it on day one. Biden also effectively ended deportations. There was a policy under Obama where they said they weren't going to prioritize most illegal immigration for deportations. Under Trump, they put an executive order that said we're going to prioritize all illegal immigrants for deportation. Biden rescinded that executive order. Trump had an executive order that said while you're waiting for your asylum claim to be adjudicated, you wait in Mexico, not in the interior of the United States. Biden rescinded that executive order. Trump said, we will return you to one of the Northern Triangle countries, a third-party country. Biden rescinded that executive order. As a result, illegal immigration under Biden is higher than at any point in history by far. In the 10 years between 2010 and 2020, illegal border crossings, only 1 year on average, on a day-to-day basis, were over 3,000 per day. Under the Biden administration, it was 4,000, 6,000, and now it's over 7,000 border crossings. So it's almost 3 times the 10-year average, and that's because they removed the Trump-era policies. Now they want to blame it on a Senate bill this year? I don't think so.
Thank you for all the information, Nick. I'm going to have fun with this. First of all, it's funny that you think you're so educated about the border, and then you say that Lankford's bill was in the Senate in 2024. No, that was 2023. It started drafting in late 2021.
Who was president in 2023?
Secondly, you mentioned all the policies that Trump enacted that Biden repealed.
I hate this kid.
First of all, if you look at the border crossings under Donald Trump's presidency, they went up year by year by year until Title 42 is implemented. What does that tell us? Immigration after these great policies didn't go down. What else do we know is that these policies weren't in place under Obama's administration. Did we have a border crisis to the same degree that we have now under Obama's administration? No, at points we had lower crossings than we had under Trump. Phenomenal. What does this tell us? Is that Biden repealing those policies didn't cause the crisis to start. So what did? That's a great question. Well, let's treat Title 42, the total and complete shutdown caused by or implemented because of the public health emergency, like a dam on a river. Okay, and that dam sat on the river for 1.5 2 years, however long it was. When you remove the dam from the river, what happens?
This kid needs
Water
to be stopped.
gushes through.
This
when
kid
Title
needs to be
42
removed from public
expired,
life
guess
permanently.
what?
I'm not
All of those
suggesting violence.
migrants
I'm
that
just
had
saying I
been
don't want him on the
backlogged
internet.
gushed
That's
through.
all I'm saying. I
This
don't
was
want to hear him on the
natural,
internet.
normal,
That's
and
it.
expected. We should evaluate the
He wants to have a
responsibility
private
and the
life, that's
efficacy
fine.
of our current administration based upon their response to this crisis
just don't
being
know how much
caused
more
by
of this I can
revocal of
take.
Title 42. And what was their response? To implement bipartisan border legislation, and the first step they took was to influence exactly that through the House and the Senate. That was Lankford's bill. What happened next? Trump calls the Republicans in the House and the Senate, tells them to vote against it, torpedoes the bill. Nick over here knows the story. But I would like to ask you a very crystal clear question, Nick, and it is in the sense of a hypothetical. If your house is burning down and the fire truck shows up to put out the fire, and you tell the fire truck to turn around because you want the house to burn so you can claim the insurance money, Nick Fuentes, did you care about the house?
Well, it's an incorrect hypothetical because the bill would actually concretize the Biden era policies. The bill does not secure the border. So the premise fails on that alone.
And the way that I'd respond to that
do you know,
is I'm
wait,
sure
let
that
me
you
ask
could look
you,
at
do you know the details of the bill? Can you tell me the provisions that are in the bill, please?
Yeah.
I
that
could
kid's
tell you a
gay.
handful. Like, what was it? Like an additional $500 million towards the courts on the border to expedite asylum-seeking claims. Then we also had like some rolling average daily caps and weekly caps in which the president could then
Do you know what
step
they
in and
are?
close the border down. I think it was like 5,000 a day for like the weekly cap. But here's my response to that. You said that the average over the administration was like 7,000 or 9,000 a day, whatever you said it was. If you were starving and I offered you a hamburger, would you take it? Or would you say, no, I want a bacon wrap filet? You take the damn hamburger. So when the border crisis is exuberantly high and we have this
Wow.
bipartisan border legislation that the alt-right, like Nick Fuentes, isn't happy about, any rational, sane person would take the bill to decrease the impact of the crisis.
All right.
And
Now let me respond to that now, because you went on your whole thing about, you corrected me on some of these things.
But
Let
you
me
never
now
answered my
rebut that.
question.
Well, because the premise of the question is wrong, but I'll
I
answer it
explained
now.
to you how it wasn't
Yeah, you
wrong.
want me to answer these like false hypotheticals and syllogisms, but that's not really how a debate works, actually. If
It's not false. You're just
if
saying it is.
passing this bill is like putting out a fire, would you pass the bill? Okay. So first of all, you said the bill was from 2023. The bill failed in 2024. And that's because it resulted from the impasse over appropriations in September 2023. There was an impasse in Congress over 12 military appropriations bills. The deadline was October 1st. That's why Kevin McCarthy was removed, because the Freedom Caucus, specifically the MAGA caucus within it, insisted on what they were calling, I forget the name of it, but a certain border provision in the spending bill. McCarthy wouldn't go for it. And they kept passing continuing resolutions until a bipartisan agreement was put together in the Senate. But at that point, and that was in February, Mitch McConnell said, my first priority is Ukraine, because that was the other sticking point in negotiations. So the Republicans, because they wanted Ukraine aid to pass, which was another subject of the impasse, they said, fine, here's your border concessions. And I'll tell you the provisions because you don't know. It said that it would only mandate enforcement of the border when daily apprehensions hit more than 8,000 per day. Again, the average of the past 20 years is 2,000 to 3,000 per day. It would say you only have to enforce. That's what the bill says. The bill says
no,
8,000 per day. It says that
Could we get a
it
fact
says that
check
the
on that?
administration can get emergency authority at 5,000 per day on average over a 7-day period. But it only
Another
mandates it only
Another
no
lie.
not a lie. It mandates enforcement at 8,000.
It's 5,000 for one day for
excuse me, I
lockdown,
let you finish your
2,500 for
nonsense when you
rolling
said it was in
average.
23 when it wasn't. So you're wrong about that. It mandates it at 8,000 per day. What's more, again, the daily averages for 20 years, 10, 20 years, was 2,000 to 3,000. Under the Biden administration, it goes up past 7,000. They want to say, well, 5,000, you get emergency powers. 8,000, you have to use emergency powers. That's far too many. There's been, and this whole argument about a backlog because of Title 42, 10 million illegal immigrants have come in under Biden. Title 42 is implemented. When did the lockdown happen? March 2020? You think 10 million illegals were trying to get in the 9-month period between March and December of 2020? Biden undid all the policies in January 2021. So that's just like an ad hoc. You're just fishing around for an answer. With regard to the Trump administration, you can see very clearly cause and effect on immigration. When Trump was elected, illegal immigration went down because foreigners anticipated that there would be enforcement. So, and you can see throughout the history of the country, when they threaten enforcement, illegals don't come. When they think they'll get amnesty or they think they'll get in, more of them arrive. So they thought Trump was going to be a hardliner on immigration. They didn't come. Then in September and October 2017, Trump floated a DACA amnesty. He said, we're going to give amnesty to all the deferred action on childhood arrivals. The reason that matters is because children being brought over the border is one of the 3 big loopholes for how illegals are caught and released into the country. They bring children that aren't there and all kinds of other things. So Trump said, we'll give an amnesty. Then all of a sudden, they started getting caravans from the Northern Triangle in the spring of 2018 because he said amnesty. They heard it. They started to come. Trump maintained a zero tolerance policy promulgated then by Jeff Sessions. And they said, we're going to separate the children. We're going to treat them as unaccompanied minors. There was a huge media outcry before the election. They had to reverse it. And then after they reversed it, it exploded. And May and June 2019, they hit a peak. Trump implemented the migrant protection protocols by threatening sanctions, or rather tariffs against Mexico, and then it came down again. And that is the story of illegal immigration in Trump and the Biden years. It has everything to do.
I see very differently.
Hang on. It has everything to do with the Biden policies. They let in 10 million people, and then they float out this half-ass bill that doesn't
what
fix.
policies did Biden and Harris influence to get passed?
Let me finish.
Bro,
they put out this half-ass bill in the last year because everyone agrees the border's a crisis. They concretize it and basically codify in federal law Biden's policy to let 5,000 people a day on average here. And then when Republicans voted against it, they said, oh, Republicans are against border security. It's a political thing. Even Democrats acknowledge that. It's totally fake. You know, you could keep going with it, but everyone knows it's fake.
Okay. Well, apparently Trump doesn't. He said at a rally in Nevada to blame it on him if the border bill fails. So I think that Trump's big mouth actually does him a lot of harm.
My
because
God.
I just used
He's
Trump's
not
own
responding to
word of
anything
mouth
Nick just
to
said.
debunk Nick Fuentes supporting Trump. So yeah, see that's the
I
face
heard
of a
about
losing
this.
man.
James
and you
using
said that you
AI
were
to
basically
summarize
just
how he's
retarded.
psycho.
Okay.
So go
Well,
ahead.
I don't appreciate your use of the slurs, but I guess that's what
Yeah, I
emotionally
agree with this,
immature
Jana.
men, when someone smarter than them lays down
Oh
the truth.
my
Isn't that right,
God,
sir?
child.
10
Oh.
minutes on this
We
topic.
make jokes. Men are funny. Men are funny. Women are not funny. That's another advantage, but that's the other debate.
Are you a woman?
You could call it emotionally immature.
Nick
Oh
is
my
hilarious.
gosh, he said the R word. That's what happens when an emotionally immature male.
Oh.
Go ahead.
sorry,
I'm sorry.
according to-
Go ahead.
according-
About
according
Go
to your
ahead on
logic.
immigration.
According to your logic. But I would like to specifically clarify that your comment about men being more funny than women was just
That's
another
true.
unfunny, false fucking
Most
comment
women
by an
are not
immature
funny.
man.
That's a
I didn't
fact.
find it that fucking
women-
funny
I'm funny
when you
'cause
were
I'm more
telling us that the
masculine.
Holocaust
Most women
was
are not
fake
funny.
and that
It's
6 million
ma'am.
Jewish people didn't die. I didn't find it that fucking funny when you sat here and you told me that Trump didn't torpedo
listen
the
to the
border
clutching
bill,
of the I
even though
didn't
he
find
said he
it
did
funny
at a
when
rally
you
in
said the
Nevada.
Holocaust
If
wasn't
men were
real,
so much more
Nicholas.
funny than women, then why are you the most unfunny fucking specimen that I've ever had the displeasure of sitting across the damn phone with?
Why are you mad, dude? Why are you?
I'm
We're
not
just
mad,
having a
I'm
debate.
passionate.
Wait, who's funnier, Trump or Kamala?
Trump.
Who's funnier?
Be honest.
Trump is funnier than Kamala Harris.
Case
but
in
that doesn't-
point, I win the
Okay.
debate. Men funnier than women.
Oh, okay, but
You heard it here
understand
first.
you understand the reason I'd say that Trump is funnier than Kamala Harris is
Yeah,
because
because
he
he's
has
a
the I-
guy.
No, because he has the IQ of your fucking family pet, and he sits on Twitter all day, and he rants about how much
Wow,
he
this
hates
kid, you
Taylor
know he
Swift just
prepared all
because
these
he
lines.
endorsed Kamala Harris.
That
It
was
isn't.
funny.
She endorsed Kamala Harris.
This kid
It's not a
is
funny and a
so
ha-ha.
coping right
It's
now.
a funny and it look at this guy fucking burn.
Dude, why? It's always like this diminutive. It's funny because it's sad, because you're a sad little. It was, dude, the president tweeted in all caps, I
child.
hate Taylor Swift. You don't think that's funny? You don't think that's not hilarious?
Wait, the president, do you think that Trump won 2020?
I said the former president.
But do you think Trump won 2020?
Yes.
100% he did. That's a fact.
Yes.
Can you name one court case that would find
No,
that
because
there
they
was
threw all the
sufficient voter fraud to
they
overturn
threw all the
results of
cases
evidence?
out because they lacked standing.
Okay, so is it okay to believe in things without evidence?
There is evidence. You asked about court cases, but the court cases weren't lost. They were thrown out because they didn't have standing. There's a difference.
So there's not any evidence. But there's
No, there is
No,
evidence.
no, Junior.
So what's the
There is
evidence
no
of the widespread
child.
voter fraud in 2020?
No.
The evidence is this. Do you know how many people voted early in the 2016 election? Do you know what percentage?
Significantly less than in the 2020 election.
Correct. Half, 35%. And in 2020 it was 70%.
Okay, so that's your evidence that Trump had the election stolen from him?
Well,
Good
let
God,
me,
Nick Fuentes.
whoa, why so hasty? Let's just talk about it.
I'm sorry. I'm having
So,
fun, man. I'm having
The
fun,
amount
sorry.
yeah, I can tell. The amount of early voting doubled because they changed the rules. In all the states, they changed the rules. In Pennsylvania, North Carolina, they illegally changed the rules with state election boards, with the state Supreme Court. In Wisconsin, they changed indefinitely confined status to mean anybody because of the pandemic. They solicited ballots. I literally got a ballot in Illinois for my uncle who has been dead for 20 years because they were soliciting ballots. And I would just say, and let me ask you this. If democracy is so sacred, which you believe, Kamala is going to protect and preserve our democracy. We're not going
Only
back.
because Trump tried to
Hang on.
overthrow it with a fake
But
electoral plot.
if democracy is so precious, then a ballot is a precious thing because the ballot is the currency of the election. Do you think that it's good practice to ship out ballots to every voter and then tell them to dump them off in a drop box in a park unsupervised for a month at any time during the day? You think that's a good way to run an election?
Yeah, okay. I mean, then Trump shouldn't have voted, right?
Well,
Because he
is it?
voted
I'm
by
asking
mail-in.
you, is it? That's what happened.
Yeah, I think that mail-in ballots can be made secure. I understand your immediate response to them, saying that, oh, if I use these words in this particular way, this doesn't seem
Well,
like
just
a real
answer. I mean, do you
safe
think that's a good way to run an election? Obviously
It is.
not.
It is.
It's
And
obvious.
it is, and the empirics would agree with me. There's no sufficient evidence of widespread
How?
voter fraud. All the audits that were done on the outcome of the 2020 election indicated that it was a safe election in recorded U.S. history.
2020
Where do they
election
conduct
was
audits?
the best
One moment.
election
Donald Trump
ever
went to
in
63
history. It was the most
handpicked
perfect
courts, with
election
34 of those
ever.
judges being Republican appointed,
Okay.
17 of those judges being appointed by himself. All 63 of those courts ruled that there was no sufficient evidence and threw it out on the basis of no standing. And then Donald Trump even tried to form his own election integrity committee and bumped millions of dollars into them to find absolutely anything. They came up with a 2000 Mules movie, which the producers admitted in fucking court that they were lying. And when he found out that he had no evidence, what did he do? He went to the DOJ with Bill Barr and tried to pressure him in to falsely announcing widespread voter fraud was when there wasn't any. And if you know anything about your history, Bill Barr had to resign from the DOJ because half of the DOJ threatened to quit if he didn't. Donald Trump not only tried to rig the outcome of the 2020 election with the
This
fake
kid needs to be
electorate plot,
stopped
sending 7 different
non-violently.
slates of fake electorates to
I
7
don't wanna
different
have to
states to
suffer
cast
this
fake votes into
child
Congress
for
to either be
however long he's
certified
on
as
the
real by
internet.
Mike Pence or to be or to be accepted by the House if Mike Pence were to claim ignorance. But he also lied about the outcome. Your conspiracy theory that Donald Trump won has no evidence for it, and the only thing you could come up with was
This is the
Pennsylvania
you're right
changing their
about this.
voting
This is
rules
the
because of
average
COVID,
Democrat.
which, by the way, was ruled as
We're gonna
legal
go
by
back
the
to
Supreme
watching
Court.
You're just like not
Socialism
even
tomorrow.
listening. It was Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Wisconsin, and basically every state, and
No,
they all
he's
did it
not being
illegally.
stopped. He's
Basically,
not. He's
every
still
state
talking.
changed rules of the election.
want him to
And I would
stop
say,
talking.
you're telling me, oh,
Entirely.
putting 70%
I'm
of the
about to
voters
stop him in a
voting
minute.
early by putting them in mailboxes a month out from the election in an unsupervised drop box, you're saying, that is a good idea. You're just putting words in a particular order. Look, they don't do it like that in France because, and we didn't do it here in America. The absentee voting was so rare up until like 20 years ago, up until 4 years ago, because it's so prone to fraud, obviously. When you vote in person, you got to present.
just have evidence that it's not.
Hang on. I let you just go.
Right. You let me
You
out.
got to present your ID. You receive your ballot. They watch you. You go into a room with curtains on it because there's privacy involved too. You fill it out and you submit it. It's called a chain of custody, meaning a supervisor watches the voter get their ballot, fill it out, and return it. It doesn't happen when you're doing so-called in-person absentee voting, and that's how 70% of people voted. That's a big problem. It's a big problem. They changed the rules without doing it in the constitutional way. It's a big problem that those cases weren't even considered in the Supreme Court. It's also a big problem, by the way, they didn't do an independent ballot audit in almost any of the states. They did one in Arizona. It was flawed. They still found.
Georgia.
Where did they conduct an independent ballot audit? Where did they conduct
Georgia.
an independent? It wasn't independent. They did a recount.
Georgia, Idaho,
Nope.
Indiana,
Wrong,
Kansas,
wrong,
Michigan,
See,
New
Nick is
Jersey,
turning into
and
wrong.
Oklahoma.
That's
And in
just
fact,
wrong.
I
No.
knew
You're
that
just
you
wrong.
would say
Google
that
it.
this is wrong.
Wrong.
I knew that
Google
you
it.
would say that. I knew that you.
Nick has just turned into me anytime we watch a James Lindsay podcast and James goes off on some Gnostic cult theory and I'm like, no, wrong, incorrect, no, wrong.
would say this is wrong. Search up U.S. States Election Assistant Commission, election audits across the United States. It'll give you an entire PDF.
They're not
Hey.
independent.
That would
That's
include
the
the types of
problem.
By the way, while I have some groypers here, completely separate questions. We are going to be wrapping this up in a minute. I'm not watching the Andrew Tate portion of this. Nick is going to go live at some point. Has anyone seen the Joker 2 movie yet? And if you guys have seen it, how is it? Please tell me they didn't ruin it. Please, I really want to go see this movie. I don't know if I want to go see it this weekend, but I'm frightened that they've ruined it. So please tell me if you've seen it and if you have a review.
types of audits, the timing, the policies, the case studies, and the state-specific information indicating that, yes, these were independent
It's like you're just
audits.
not even
Feel free to
listening.
look through them.
I didn't say they didn't do audits or recounts. No, in no state other than Arizona did they conduct an independent audit of the ballots. Of course,
I don't want to hear from people who heard from a friend that maybe they ruined it. I want to hear from people who have actually seen the movie. Because I know, I've heard the rumors too that they ruined it. I'm asking for an actual review of someone who has actually seen the movie.
if the same people that oversaw the fraud and were covering up the windows in the stadium in Detroit,
Yeah.
of course the state is going to cover its own ass. That's why it needs to be independent. And they didn't do it in any state, even though that's what we were asking for. And by the way, about fake electors, they're not
What do you mean
fake.
by independent?
Independent meaning not conducted by the state.
Oh, okay. Independent of the state. So I just want to
Yes.
clarify. So you think that Donald Trump shouldn't have went to like the 17 judges that he appointed because those weren't
So
independent
now you're just
judges?
gish galloping onto something else. You said, oh,
I
I
was
was
just
ready
curious.
for you to say
Yeah,
that. I have all this evidence. Oh, I didn't listen and you said independent. Anyway, how about judges or something? Anyway,
no, responding
Let's
specifically.
get back on topic. Dean. Hold on. We've been going back and forth about January 6th. This topic is about immigration. Let's go to closing statements here. We'll do 1 minute from Dean and then 1 minute from Nick. Let's do closing statements. You can bring up January 6th, but let's keep it to immigration if you can. Actually, I'll give you 90 seconds to reel it back a little. 90 seconds each.
About the specific ballot audits, I didn't know what you meant when you're referencing independent audits. I understand that you are now referencing audits independent of the state. I asked you to define your term, and I understand that. Yeah,
because you're on ChatGPT Democrat mode. You heard audit.
Nick, let's give him 90 seconds. Let's give him 90 seconds uninterrupted. I'll restart your time, Dean.
No, I just don't think that like an audit done by a state can automatically be discounted because you exist in a echo chamber of conspiratorial hearsay, and you start off with the basis Trump can never lose. You move to the basis when Trump loses, no, he didn't, and then tangent of that, you say all of these audits done by independent states are thereby null and void, and I shouldn't listen to them nor the 63 courts. It's just conspiracy theory. That's what you are. Your mind's been rotted. Everyone agrees with me. No one agrees with you apart from Donald Trump. Not even his old VP, Mike Pence, or 44 of the 46 former cabinet members. And that needs to be pointed out. Now, closing statements about immigration specifically, was that what you asked for, Sneeko?
Yeah.
I thought it was 90 seconds each on J6 and then closing
statements.
I'm
down for that. I'm down for that. I kind of like this.
Yeah,
sure, that's fine.
Okay, let me do mine now on J6. So you know, here's the thing about the Trump election. They doubled the number of early voting. There's obvious flaws with chain of custody. Like, it just doesn't even pass the smell test. On that basis alone, you just can't take the authenticity of the election. And people say it's about, you believe Trump can never lose. I don't think that at all. I think Trump may lose in 2024. But you have to recognize that 2020 was an anomalous election. So when there is an anomaly, when every state changes how they conduct their ballot, when there's an unprecedented, the former peak of early voting was 35%. It was 70% in 2020. It was different. When something is different, you have to investigate it. That's the basis of an inquiry. Problem is, nobody wanted to investigate it. As quickly as the election happened, they wanted to shut it down. They censored people for talking about it. They didn't conduct independent ballot audits. And there was even a Time magazine piece that came out in January 2021, and it said, this is the conspiracy to shut down the election deniers. And there was like a full spectrum attack from the Democrats and the left on protesters, on people that were investigating this to prevent them from trying to decertify, trying to send on over other slates of electors. And I would point out, it is the state legislature's constitutional authority to send electors. If they throw out the election because they don't want to certify it and appoint a different slate of electors, that's their constitutional right to do so. That's just the law. And I would just say, look, if you really believe that 80 million people voted for Biden, that the 2020 election had more voters than any election in history by far, and it just happened to be the one where there was all mail-in ballots,
10 seconds.
Then, yeah, I just think you're dumb. I mean, so that's kind of my closing statement on J6.
You're a retard.
Let's go closing statements on immigration. Let's do 1 minute each on immigration. Go ahead, Dean.
Cool. I'm just, you could take this off of my time. Well, you told me that your whole theory here is reliant on a smell test. Nick, I fucking smell bullshit. We shouldn't be relying on our intuitions and our emotions to tell us who won the 2020 election. I think that conservatives are so funny because they'll be like, listen to the science, trans women aren't women. I don't care about what you think or feel. You have XYXX chromosomes, but then sit over here and give me some bullshit smell test to dictate who won in 2020. About immigration specifically, I think it's evidently clear that Donald Trump doesn't care about the southern border, or else he wouldn't have torpedoed the bipartisan border bill in the House and the Senate 2 years ago. I think that it's evidently clear that he's not about getting shit done. He's repeating the same Republican tagline that every Republican in the last 20 years has, with quote unquote deport them all. My question to you would be, why didn't Bush? They can't do it. It's practically infeasible. I say that we deport all violent undocumented migrants and then give the rest a pathway to residency and citizenship, fix our southern border, make it faster, make it quicker, and make it safer, and then crack down further on undocumented migration when our legal systems are up to par. But instead, we'd rather deport them all, right? Get rid of $1.7 trillion from our economy over the next 10 years. You don't care about the debt. You don't care about the state of the economy. You don't care about the workers in the economy. All that you care about is spewing your fucking prejudice. You're doing the same thing with undocumented migrants now that you did with gay people and women 30 minutes ago. Take it away.
Closing statement, Nick. 1 minute.
Yeah. Closing
Basket
statement.
of deplorables, right? Or it's just a basket of deplorables. With regard to immigration, everybody knows Biden threw open the border. He rescinded every Trump executive order on immigration. He stopped construction of the wall. He effectively stopped deportations. Guess what happens? You get a lot of people. You get 10 million illegals in 4 years. That's insane. 10 million people in 4 years from Venezuela, from Haiti, from Africa, we don't even know who they are. The people that are coming here, they don't buy health care. They don't have a high school education. They have no resources. They're a massive drain on the economy. When they need health care, they go to the emergency room. They send their kids to public schools. It's a huge drain. And many states are eligible for SNAP. They're eligible for other benefits, and they work low wages. Because they're not educated, they work low skill, low paying jobs. They will never in a million years, maybe in a million, but they won't pay off in taxes what they receive in services. It's a big fiscal impact. In many cases, they're criminals. They don't share our culture. They're low IQ. And we can, I mean, it's just obvious that this border bill thing was an ass-saving move. They poison-pilled it with a bunch of nonsense so that they could blame it on Trump. But we all know the reality, and it's wrecking our country.
Okay, thank you. That was 5 topics. I think this was a good spirited debate overall. I appreciate both of your time. Aiden, do you have any thoughts?
You guys were...
All right, that's it. I can't take any more. Nick won. Nick obviously won. It wasn't even close. That kid had no business being on the same debate stage as Nick. It's like it's laughable. It is laughable that this is the state of discourse on the internet. Guys, that's all I have for today. Now, I want to remind everyone, got a couple new things in the Unwoke Art merch store. In fact, I'm very excited about my new yard signs. I've never been this excited about a yard sign before. Never thought I'd have a yard sign in the Unwoke Art store, but I do have one now. So you can head over to unwokeart.com. Link is in the description below. Pick up your new yard sign just in time for Halloween. So, you know, you can like let all the parents know like where you really stand. I think it's going to be interesting to see how many people buy yard signs. I've been getting orders ever since I put it up today. So I'm pretty happy about that. I also do have the limited edition Halloween collection where I have 4 Marxism is basically terrifying themed shirts. We've got Marxism is coming for your soul. We've got collectivism. We've got everyone is equal until they're not. And then we have the Marxist Utopia of the Dead. All of those are available for 25% off if you order before October 7th. Anything in the Halloween collection is. We have t-shirts, we have sweatshirts, we have pint glasses, we've got mugs, we've got stickers, lots of other cool stuff in the Unwoke Art store as well. And of course, all your purchases do go to support the work I'm doing, and I really appreciate it. We're going to go back to socialism tomorrow. And I'm never going to listen to any Democrat kids ever talk again on the internet. I know. Those shirts are fucking awesome, right? Listen, I'm pretty proud of my designs. I do all the designs for the Unwoke Art Store. I especially like this collectivism one. I based it on like old school 80s horror movie. And check this out. It comes in red. And it looks awesome. Looks awesome. I'm going to get one for myself. Everyone should pick up some merch. It's cool. Anyway, guys, that is all I got. I ain't got no more. We're going to go back to watching socialism tomorrow because that is unironically better than what we watched today. I hope you all have a great rest of your night. Please make sure you mount the like button on the way out the door. Please make sure you subscribe on whatever platform you're watching on. I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye.